So we'll go ahead and call the annual retreat of the Historic Preservation Commission to order. We start with a roll.
Chairman Lane.
Here.
Commissioner Norton.
Here.
Commissioner Tarrant.
Here.
Commissioner Barnard.
Here.
Commissioner Jacoby.
Here.
Commissioner O'Day.
Here.
Commissioner Berman.
Here.
Commissioner Henderson.
Okay, great. So welcome everybody. Do we feel like an introduction is in order? Sort of.
Good.
Clear enough with everybody else that we're good?
Where?
I guess this is the official, if there's anybody here in the audience who is here to speak on some topic, doesn't look like it, so we'll open and close the public invited to be heard portion and move on to the meeting itself. All right, discussion items. First off, a recap of last year's accomplishments and progress.
All right, so I don't think I actually finished this slide because I know we've done more than this. We've definitely done more than this. So we did finalize the survey plan. We presented it to council last year as well. So we spoke with them about it. Yeah, I definitely did not finish this slide. We did outreach to property owners, landmark property owners, via mailing to all landmark properties. Just basically doing the reminder that you are in fact, they were in fact a landmark property and the benefits, but also the responsibilities that comes with that. In terms of outreach, we did have a table at the Longmont Historical Society's annual Strawberry Festival. We had our first real test of the demolition ordinance, which was fun and exciting for all of us.
Define fun.
I was going to say interesting term, but okay.
Yeah.
Dripping with sarcasm. So
that doesn't go in the minutes.
that doesn't go in the minutes, yeah.
Maria is very good about filtering these.
And then I review them. No, so that was definitely a learning experience for all of us. That was the first formal one we had that actually was referred to City Council for consideration, and they basically did not believe that it rose to the occasion of potentially being eligible for landmark status without the owner's consent. So they kicked it back, basically said they can go through the demolition process. At this, just as an update on that, obviously the house is still there, and I think they had it on the market because of reasons. And
I noticed it was still there.
it is still there, so that's they have to do some asbestos remediation. So I think that's kind of
You have to do that whether you knock it down or keep it.
exactly. So I think that was
hilarious.
our building folks, our building department is going, no, really, you have to do asbestos remediation. Yeah, so can't have friable asbestos in the air all over town. So that was definitely, that was a learning experience for all of us. Moving forward, I apologize. I thought I was all done with this presentation and realized I never went back and finished this slide. So we definitely did quite a bit. We had a lot of interest and outreach. We processed a number of tax credit applications for things like new roofs and such. So
One for solar panels.
one for solar. No, we had a request for solar panels, but we did not actually. It's not eligible for solar panel. I did confirm with Lindsay at History Colorado. So, no, they're not eligible, but we are looking into it, is what she told me. So, and then of course with solar panels, we did officially adopt a solar panel guidelines as well. So, if I'm forgetting anything else, I know there's been quite a bit. We all went to, not all, but many of us went to the Saving Places Conference last year as well as this year. Staff participates regularly in meetings with other CLGs, kind of doing updates on what we're all doing and any other things as well. So
On that, Chairman, we did last year statewide conference call on what are you doing about your sugar factories? And there were 19 cities on the call.
Yes.
And it was, the most important thing that I came away from it was that nobody has any idea what to do. There isn't one, like I was hoping maybe one city that's come up with a really good idea, but they're all sitting in the same box that we are. They just don't know what to do. And they've got some interest from some people. There's a lot of meh on the call.
Do you remember what was the one city that had a good idea?
No.
Yeah, everyone was
No,
like,
no.
Gotcha.
everyone's
We've got the
definitely.
best ideas.
Everybody had the same problem we did. Well, it's a lot of remediation, and it's a big land, it's not in the city, and pretty much in every case. The Great Beat, whatever it was
Yeah.
called, decided that
Great
it
Western.
would make more sense to be in the county and avoid city laws. And so they're all,
Yeah, they're all in these weird little, like, much like ours, they're in these interesting, weird little unincorporated county enclaves. Actually, kind of semi-related to that. In my other role as long-range planner for the city, we are doing, I don't know how much you pay attention to city council meetings, but we do have direction to proceed with developing a new mixed-use zoning district that would be, we're calling it MUIR for innovation and revitalization. And the initial target area would include parts of the sugar factory area and steam. So we would have a zoning district ready to go when those properties get annexed into the city. That would basically using the sugar factory and steam sub area plan as as guidance for developing this new district. So we are at the very beginning stages of that, and there will be pretty extensive community outreach. But I definitely will, as we get farther along, will be talking to this commission about it, because one of the things that council is interested in seeing, and I'm really interested in seeing, is how do we encourage adaptive reuse of structures in these areas. The idea of this particular zoning district would be that it is heavily focused on designated areas that are designated already for redevelopment or somehow targeted for redevelopment initiatives by the city. So, for example, it might contain an urban redevelopment area or urban renewal area, which this area does. So there's the potential for some really good overlap. We did start that at the end of last year, but there's definitely some good potential for overlap between this commission's efforts and what we're seeking to achieve on that side as well.
I have two questions.
Yeah.
Already. First of all, if the house on Kimbark is now available again, is it reasonable for us to do some kind of outreach to the realtor, let them know that A, we've considered historically designating it if the purchaser decides to do some cheaper renovations, and B, we have one engineer who says the foundation can be restored much cheaper than what other quotes have been?
I don't know that it's appropriate for us to do that in an official capacity, but I can also say that I'm fairly certain that the owner of the property is also the realtor for the property, because I believe they are.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're like, what's that?
So no.
So they're like, they do some development, they do some, contracting, they do some real estate. They're very,
They do
we'll just
everything.
say they're a
If they
diversified.
can make a buck from it,
They're
yeah.
a diversified organization.
Yeah, a lot of the open houses I go to in my neighborhood, because I'm always nosy to see what the old places are like. Realtors have no idea what historic designation means, even when they're selling a home that's designated.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah, I've been attempting to do some outreach to the Bolo realtors to see about maybe getting on one of their agendas at some point. Just because I do get so many calls from realtors asking what it means and what we can do if a property's on the market. So that is something that is kind of in my, I don't want to say parking lot, but I have reached out and I haven't heard back. So you have a connection? Okay, cool.
My other question was about the sugar factory. That thing is, we've been looking at that for years. And back when, I don't think you were even the staff liaison at the time, it was up. And we had, all of a sudden, all this money came available for kids' recreation.
Mhm.
And the city was trying to figure out how to best spend that. And no one probably here knows what happened to that money. But I suggested that big beach shed be converted to an indoor athletic field. It's right on highways.
Mhm.
It's a huge, huge facility. If we designated just that portion, they could rehab it maybe a little cheaper. And then we'd have an indoor recreation facility for gaming, for tennis,
Yeah.
for even soccer.
So at this point, so I was not involved in those conversations,
Right,
but
that was a while ago.
just in the interest of, kind of moving this on as well, there are a number of challenges with the sugar factory. I know a lot of people have eyes on that sugar beet shed as doing some kind of performance venue of some sort.
Oh,
There's
really?
a lot of ideas for that shed.
Okay.
Whether any, how viable they are, I don't know. But the big challenges, I'll just say the biggest challenges with this site are, it's still an unincorporated county enclave, so we don't have jurisdiction over it.
Right.
It has multiple property owners with varying degrees of commitment to doing something with their properties. It is a giant brownfield site because of the sugar beet spoils. So there's going to be millions and millions and millions, like tens of millions of dollars worth of cleanup that's necessary for the site. So those are the big three. So before we can, jurisdiction's the number one thing. But I can also tell you our redevelopment team has been working very hard on that. So there's been a lot of work behind the scenes. So we'll see what happens. So, and I apologize for not finishing this slide. Anyone else has anything that I forgot that we did last year? Because I know we were busy.
I have one thing to add.
Yeah.
We started taking photos of new photos of our landmark properties, so that's been ongoing and should be able to finish that up this spring.
Yes, and we also are in the process of updating and fixing our interesting website. So, there was a giant citywide website update done like a year and a half or so ago, and some parts worked better than others. So, we are doing kind of a department-wide push to figure out to get it cleaned up and useful. So, we've definitely been working on that as well. So.
And I went to the, on the road
Oh, yes.
up in,
The Steamboat this year?
northwest.
Yes, Steamboat.
Steamboat,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, there's lots of good training opportunities, and webinars and such through the CLG as well. So I try to get those sent to the commission. Sometimes it does slip through the cracks because it's been a lot going on.
Next was in Pueblo.
I'm not sure when the next one
I think
is.
so, yeah.
Okay.
Tower of Compassion.
Tower of Compassion, that actually, thank you. That was made National Register landmark status as well.
And I did touch base with Damien after our meeting.
And I talked to him as
Okay.
well.
Good.
Yeah, we talked on a few different
Okay.
things at the conference. So,
Okay, great.
it's just a matter of herding some cats. We've got a few, just from things to keep in mind for 2026. We've got a few things that are going to be taking up a lot of my time that aren't historic preservation, specifically the related to the state planning requirements, specifically House Bill 241313 that was done. We have, the city was notified this past week that we received, we are a one of the initial pilot grant recipients for the Transit-Oriented Community Infrastructure Grant Program, which will be for the First and Main Transit Center area. What that means is we have to have final compliance and have a final report that would have been due at the end of the year, finished in 90 days. So, so that's going to be a pretty big lift. We also have to have what's a new strategic growth element finalized by the end of the year as well, in addition to the mixed use innovation and revitalization. So we do have a lot of irons in the fire, and 2 of those are state mandated things that we have to do. So, the city has what they call a lean staffing model. So, basically means that there aren't really any of us sitting around twiddling our thumbs. But when we have a lot of things come down the pipe, it can be very challenging from a staff capacity standpoint. So that's what I have for the accomplishments.
Just going back to the Tower of Compassion,
Yeah.
you said, is that about doing a ceremony?
Yes,
Okay,
that's about doing a formal plaque dedication, so we just need to get that. I need to coordinate with our parks folks and with Damien and get that figured out. I don't yet have a time frame for that, but it's on my whiteboard, so it will happen. It's just a matter of
Is that something that one of us can help you coordinate with all this other stuff?
possibly. The biggest thing is I need to reach out to Damien and reach out to our parks folks and figure out what's going to work for everybody, because I'm sure we'll need to have the mayor as well. We'll need to have the mayor, so I'll need to coordinate with the CMO as well as parks on that. So stay tuned.
Okay, we'll jump on to saving places.
So yeah, a bunch of us worked saving places this year. I think it was an excellent conference. I'll let folks talk about what they got out of it. Mary Frances went to the Neon.
I did, and I just posted an article on it on my blog, so I can send you all the link. But yeah, it was great. We got to bend the wax, which was super cool.
That's really cool.
So we got to fire it and bend it, and they're really interesting people. So yeah, that was very cool and interesting. And I think the takeaway for us probably is that neon is actually not more expensive than LED. And their whole comment is that LED just has a different purpose. The neon is still really applicable in some areas, and LED's got its own thing, but there are things it's really not good at. So I think it's something to let people know as an option. I think is really good, because personally I think it's fantastic, and I think there should be more of it, but that's obviously a personal leaning. So
It's recyclable. That's what I learned at the.
it is.
conference.
It's yeah, it's recyclable, and it's power-wise. They've changed a lot of the. I think a lot of the negative things it got was like the transformers and such that powered it, and those have changed a ton. They talked about an artist right now who is doing some things with controlling from your app, different ways, so you can actually modernize it and make it like interactive. So there's some cool things you can do with it. So it's not just old. But I do think when people don't think about preserving the neon on signs, it's kind of tragic. So from a personal point, I had a long conversation with a guy down on of Route 66 who talked about tracking down old signs that used to be there and how they they're in a small town, but still, they talked about like so-and-so put it in their garage and then gave it to their nephew and it was still like in one piece in somebody's barn, and they found this sign and were able to put it back, and I thought, a ton of work, but super cool to still find these things. So, I mean, it's something to keep in mind. Like I said, I don't know who has all the interest in doing that, but I was talking to a realtor about the hotel that drives me crazy on Main Street, and he said he
to
knows.
specify which one that is.
It's the one where she just changed her sign, so it's
yeah.
approximately 15th. It's just between 15th and 17th.
Not later.
It's now called
The cabins or
the
something?
cabins.
Yes.
Yes. And he said that he's talked to her about selling it. She absolutely refuses. So
Interesting.
has no interest in doing anything else with it. So that's coming to that.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah. Anyway, that's what I got out of that. Those people.
And I will say I was on a panel discussion on Friday afternoon with other CLG representatives, so we had some group therapy on the stage, and it was me and
Steamboat. And,
Steamboat and Fort Collins and
is it Elizabeth?
Elizabeth,
Yeah.
yes. So we had a nice cross-section of different types of cities, so.
I'll say I had some conflicts, so I attended virtually. I am a computer idiot, but there was a learning curve to finding the conferences, but it's definitely worth considering if you had some conflicts next year. I could see, there was one lecture I could not attend. Unfortunately, they didn't videotape that, but most of them were available. But they're hidden.
And most of them are available after now that.
Right.
Yes, they're still available.
Most of them are recorded, yeah.
Yeah, and now when you go to the site, it shows that these are available, but when I first logged in, it only showed the morning conferences and nothing else available. And you have to go to, well,
Yeah.
if you look around and if you're smarter than me, you can figure it out and you can attend most of the conferences. It's worth considering virtual attendance.
And if you went and you missed something because you were in another one, you can go back and watch
Right.
the one.
That's
Right.
what's cool is, because there were a couple of times there were conflicting things that I thought were.
Yeah, I have a few I'd like to go, I need to go back and watch,
Right.
so.
I was able to go to I was there for 2 days, and I was able to go on a tour of the new locations in Denver that are designated historic, and they were predominantly, there was an LGBTQ bar, there was an African American home, and then another church, which was kind of interesting. It was just fascinating to see, like, the bar is no longer a bar, it's just a house, or it's just some store, and there's no designation on it. So we were asking the tour person, he says, so how would anybody know or why the importance of this space? So, anyway, I think it's something they're working on.
It's added to the state register,
Yeah.
those items,
Yes. It's just, like I said, they're trying to get, now, okay, it's on the register, now how do you get the designation on the building so that somebody walking by would recognize that that's what it was?
Very interesting.
The conference I thought that had me thinking the most was the one about churches and schools
was a
being
good session.
decommissioned. That was very good, and it's very pertinent for us. I mean, we're having schools decommissioned, and we had a church on Kaufman that eventually got raised for a sweet cow, which I think is a plus still. But that's okay. But I mean, it's something we should think about because some of these places are like 50s. They're not really old. And, you know, you might mull over it, the opportunity might come up for us at some point because there are more and more of those available and they are older.
I can speak to the one at 841 Martin. It was the old like Germanic Lutheran, or I can't remember, Congregation Church. That has been purchased by someone who's converting it into a home, but you know, looking to keep because it does have a easement covenant on it, because it did, when it was still a church, they did get state historic fund money to do some rehabilitation work on the interior. So, you know, they do have some limitations on what they can do to the interior, but they are going to be converting that into a home as well.
Okay.
So,
Interesting.
I thought it was
it's a
interesting
landmark
that
property.
Bent's Fort is now over 50, the recreation of Bent's Fort is now over 50 years old,
Yeah.
so is a historic site on its own, even though it's a recreation, which I thought was kind of interesting.
That is very
So-
interesting.
Yeah, actually, there was a session on Friday with a bunch of design review people, and it sat on mostly Denver downtown review boards, or the Denver's version of this, which has a lot more, which has design standards and quite a bit more that they have to follow. And it was sort of an interesting discussion because they were talking about, you know, they were showing some modifications to buildings that were landmark and talking about the history of those additions and modifications, and then filtering it back and saying, if this addition was brought forward through a design review board, would it have passed? Right? And,
Right.
and in some cases, the consensus was no.
Right.
Right now, it is, but it wasn't bad. It was just really different, and it didn't meet this criteria, and this criteria, and this criteria.
Right.
But now we consider it, you know, historic, and now you can't modify it, right? And so it was just a little, it was interesting to think a little outside the box, and past just the absolute, this, this is what it is now and therefore what it has to be. And I think that becomes even more complicated as this 50-year,
Right.
window moves and.
Yes.
and-
Well, the church we visited was exactly that.
Yeah.
They clearly had some kind of a church in early Denver history, and then this African group took it over, and the people who attend that church now are from the group that came from Africa. They're Christian, but they are,
Different denomination.
they're their own denomination and very specific about what they do, and so some of the pieces you could tell were from the original church and then from this other one, but both are historic.
Right. Yeah.
I went last year, and I wasn't at the retreat last year, so can I just,
Yeah.
okay. So I went to one presentation, it was called The Psychology of Preservation. And it was fascinating. And the speaker, he was a professor, he was talking about the first step of preservation in any kind of community city is getting people to buy into the idea of preservation. So it's not only people who actually live in historic designated houses, but the community as a whole, right? So citizens, people, in the government, everybody. But that buy-in is important because if people just say, oh, preservation, blah, blah, then you can go nowhere. And so he was talking about that idea of you have to encourage people to see that they have emotional connections to places. We all do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm not going to go through everything, but he does this in his classes, and he started doing workshops. And so he asked people to just kind of jot down. We all did this in the audience. Tell the story of your life in 3 places. So it could be places that are current, that are in your past, And he just had us write the 3 places, and it could be a house, a street, a church, a school, it could be a trail, a mountain, whatever. And he had us jot down the 3 places and then just kind of write a couple of descriptive words, and a couple words of meaning. Then we got together, somebody talked about blah, blah, blah. But it was really, I really liked it because as we were talking, you say, oh yeah, my house growing up, and then you start talking, and you start to remember all of these, memories and things like that. And it gets people to see that it's not just a structure or, a hill or whatever. It has meaning, it has connections to the past. And so that idea of buy-in, which I think is really important for an entire community. So then, if something comes up in the community where, oh, do we want to, preserve this? There might be other people who come in and say, oh yeah, no, I get the significance. And so, I don't know, I was just thinking of doing kind of like a workshop like that, like at the museum or at the library or something. We could invite realtors and things like that. Not that that's, but just so they see a bigger picture, But it might be interesting. It might be interesting if people come and then share their stories about places in Longmont, whether still there or not. They don't have, they might not be standing anymore, as a way to even share the history of Longmont and the area.
That could be a really good time with the museum, because Elizabeth Bowden at the museum frequently does talks about the history of Longmont. I know I participated in one with her, really talking about the procedural, what we're doing to try to maintain that history. So there's definitely some potential for tie-in for doing that.
And I'd be interested to, if we did something like that, to work on it. I'm not just saying, here's an idea, somebody else do it.
Yeah,
I would be interested
that
in
could be very interesting.
being part of that.
Yeah.
I just thought it's a different perspective of, instead of the legal stuff, but getting a community to buy into the idea.
Well, and that was something that I
Yeah.
thought with
Yeah.
builders, one of the things we've run across is how little builders seem to know about historic preservation, or it's a barrier. It's not a, and when we talked to that last group that came in, it's I don't think they see it as a marketing tool either, which is a more, self-interested way of educating.
yeah.
But you could
Yeah.
take the historic preservation not just as isn't this interesting, Longmont used to be this way, but maybe this is a way to sell something that otherwise is going to be really
Yes.
negative in your community because they're seeing all these apartment buildings go up and whatever.
Yeah.
maybe you sell the fact that you actually do care about the community and the history and the, you know, and tie all that in as a positive, not a, you know.
Yeah.
Doing the old things.
Yeah,
Merge
yeah,
together,
rather than
yeah.
blowing everything up and putting
Yeah.
up ugly new apartments, which
Yep.
is the way, if you listen to all the scuttlebutt online,
Right.
which I
Don't-
listen to too much of, but
Don't get me started.
yeah,
You know, it's like Hina's done with the people's name, like the houses, and then you still have the sign in
Little
front, like this
plaques
is
out
the,
front,
you know, house of blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah, you know?
Yeah.
That, and then you tell the stories of those people, right?
Yeah.
So it kind of ties into that
Right.
too, but just people seeing a more emotional connection.
When you were describing this, and you say, well, we could do this with Elizabeth Bowden, and we could certainly do more outreach. I think we're not very good at outreach. We do some, but I don't think that's our strong point. I think we could do more. What I was envisioning as you were describing this is at one of these festivals they have it like 4th and Kimbark. Get one of those booths,
Mm-hmm.
and again, I wasn't part of this,
Mhm.
but if you could make this like a game for just people on the street to come up, try this, see this. Now do you
Yeah,
see how
You
important
could have
this
people
is?
come up and
That's where
record
I-
their stories.
That would
Like
be
StoryCorps, do you
Yeah.
remember StoryCorps?
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
so, you know, people, I mean, there's a lot of things I think we can do, but that would be great, and then just say like,
yeah.
here,
That's getting
you know,
towards outreach, but
yeah, record your story or something, and then you
Yeah.
have oral histories too. But you could do a lot of little different things, but just so the community sees.
But raising
Yeah.
awareness in
Yeah.
the community as opposed to schedule this at the museum. When you have people
Exactly.
mostly interested in this already
Mhm.
coming to the museum
right,
to
they're gonna be
Elizabeth's
people who know
talks.
all
So
that.
And if we could hit people on the street,
Even the
that'd be nice.
library too might get a little bigger. I don't know
Yeah,
for like,
maybe.
you
I
know,
don't know.
I don't know if they would, you know,
I
but
think-
like, I used to do that at the library where I used to live
Yeah.
in Missouri. They used to have historic things, and our group would go and give things, workshops. Everything pad fits windows to history. And it kind of got a little bigger group, but I don't know. But I like that idea of like festivals and do
Yeah.
something too.
This is something that I think would be a really good component of a historic preservation plan that in my mind, would be a component of an update to Envision Longmont, which we'll be doing maybe next year, hopefully next year. But I know I did actually go to a really good presentation by Jesse Early and some other folks from Crested Butte, and they kind of as they did their historic preservation plan update kind of as a not follow-up, but as a next step from their comprehensive plan redo. And a lot of it was getting people together and really kind of understanding history and story and what things meant and how we can link things together. And we also found out there's a 2-story outhouse in one of the alleys in Crested Butte. So I'm going to be there.
Oh my
and
goodness.
I'm going to be there next month.
Take
So
pictures.
I am going to
No,
go
no, no.
hunting for the
The
2-story
image is
outhouse.
already too strong. No.
We were trying to figure it out. We did ask her after the fact, and it was apparently because there was like a walkway. It was basically from like the old mining days when the snow piled up so high.
Deep
that was
snow.
that was the only way they could get to it. Because we were all sitting there like, how does that work? We can't.
No.
So I will, I'm going to go look for that 2-story outhouse when I go to Crested Butte next month. So, but yeah, anyone else on Steve? I'll turn it back over to Steve.
Yeah, I was just
Yeah,
going
go
to say that what Tom's talking about might be that historical thing might be something we could think about for our booth at the Strawberry Festival. So maybe we do it again this year. Because last year it was great. It's got to meet a lot of people, hand out pieces of paper, but we didn't have anything going on there. But we could have a tape recorder or something like that, or ask people to record their stories, just to follow up on the idea so it doesn't just die.
One last comment I'd make, and it's really more, you talk about the contractors that don't really know, what they're kind of working with or how to deal with it. And that was one of the other sessions that I went to, is just talking about the just giant disconnect between the trades, skilled trades, and and where, who is even going into the skilled trades to learn things like window restoration. Right? It's just not masons. In some areas, if you're in New York City, you might find some people that are specializing in stone carving, but it's really, really limited. And so one of the things that I thought about, I have a contact at Front Range, and I thought about just pinging him
It's great.
and saying, you know, has anybody ever thought about that kind of a, you know, track, you know, or like bringing in some kind of specialty, bringing in some people that can talk about, you know, you've got somebody that's trying to learn how to be a carpenter, you know, can you bring in some preservation specialists to just,
I really like that they added, or that they started the trades, the crafts, you know, the crafts of trades, this year, and the focus on it. I went to, I can't remember which session it was, but it was, you know, about the fact that doing historic preservation work is very different from an economic standpoint. There's probably more demand for skilled trades who can do historic preservation type work, you know, working on existing buildings, than for new construction. But education is so focused on the new construction, so it's really looking at it from a, you know, you can't AI your way out of needing hands for a historic property.
Yeah, one of the sessions I sat in was exactly the same one as a contractor sitting next to me, and he was saying to the group, he said, I'd be love for some of my people who work for me to get that specialized training. He said, but if I'm not ever doing a building that needs to be, you know, so maybe the connect of trying to connect the need for the older buildings, you know, would make it worth his time to send somebody for the specialized training. He said they already know how to do windows,
right.
but doing historic windows
Yeah.
is different.
Right, sure, but there's lists, I mean, the state has lists, but you talk to people that say, well, you know, I called 3 of these people and they're, you know, none of them can.
They're booked for
Get
2
back to
years,
me.
you know.
Right, so I think
Right.
if you're connected in the right, I mean, I think that channel already exists, right? And it's about making
The connection.
the actual connection
Yes.
because it's there, the pipeline is there and it's backed up because of the lack of.
Well, and that was something that came up in the neon sign thing too, is that it had kind of tapered off, but that a lot of the younger generations now are very much into this kind of maker, going back to the basics, wanting to know how things were originally done. So I think you could interest them too, as far as Front Range, there may be more there than they know is there. You know, because if there's the opportunity, then you can draw the line between here's people who would hire these people, and, you know, if you taught it, people would actually be interested, because that's a big up and coming thing, is to recycle and reuse and to not throw out.
Yeah, and we forget the most environmentally friendly house is a
Absolutely.
storehouse,
You're
right?
done,
I mean,
right. You're not throwing
yeah,
things out.
and we live in an area that's so environmentally aware, and we forget that.
And,
You know-
and you can make a higher wage if you're a skilled
Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
worker as
Yeah.
opposed to, you know, a laborer.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Does anyone know that the trades and crafts school we have down here on Sunset? What is the name of this? Is it C-Tech? What's the name of this? They changed the name of the school. They teach welding. They teach. Do they teach
The high
carpentry?
school piece you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if they have a carpentry program.
Wouldn't it be nice to have just make them aware that, hey, why don't you have one lecture on historical carpentry because there's a huge demand, and that if you could get that professor to just give, or that carpenter or whoever, to give one lecture once a year to their 20 students, you start feeding in automatically. But I don't know if they even have a carpentry program down there. But that would be, you know, it'd be self-propelling if we could just nudge them in that direction and say, hey, have you thought of teaching this? I don't know. I have to look into
It's
that.
like the Innovation and Technology Center.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Is that what it's called now?
Yeah, it's
all
innovation
tech now,
technology.
but
Yeah,
it's
it's
not
innovation
tech. It's
tech.
welding. It's
It's
auto mechanics. They do a lot of other stuff too.
Okay.
Innovation technology. I'll have to look it up.
It's the Bojack School, what we used to call them.
I'll say I went to the presentation for the campaign for historic trades, and that one was specifically on connecting employers and students together, because they have apprenticeship programs at a national level and at a state level through the Office of Labor, I think. So they have funding available for employers to hire an apprentice to get them trained up on carpentry, on windows, and masonry, and they're looking to add some more as well. So there is money available, and they're trying to get the word out. I grabbed some paper and pamphlets. Maybe I'll try and bring it at the next meeting. But it was a really good one, so if you have the recordings available, I would definitely recommend that session. It really interesting one.
Okay, great.
Awesome. All right, well, as always, that's a great conference. I'm glad everybody got a lot out of it, and we'll certainly encourage everybody to go anytime next year. All right, let's go on to a refresher of the historic survey plan. This is to remind those of us who were involved where exactly we are and what we did, and for those of you who are not, to get caught up to speed.
Great. So yeah, we officially finalized this for realsies in early 2025, early last year. Presented it to City Council in July. There were basically 3 priority neighborhoods identified for future surveys: Old North, Cannery East, Kensington, and Bond Farm. I did include we did include the survey as a link in the packet. Also included, that's why it's 500 pages long, all of the surveys that we have found thus far for Old North. There actually are an additional 20 that I realized that we haven't found the CDs for, but we can start downloading them from the Compass system at the state because it looks like they exist there. So total 55 properties were surveyed in Old North back in between 2011 and 2014. So, which is pretty interesting.
Was that Carl?
Carl did that, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Carl did that. So yeah, that did not. This is the challenge when you're the fifth staff person doing
Do you know
historic
what the
preservation.
passion
unless-
was for doing that many surveys in that short of time?
I have not. I believe it was related to a potential transit project that did
Okay.
not materialize. But the report did not reference that. So I need to go back and see what I can find in other documents to see why it was done. But it was done. So again, this is the challenge with me being the 5th person doing historic preservation in less than 10 years for the city of Longmont is some things did not get transferred.
Remind me again, Old North is where?
So Old North is the area that is, part of that giant package also was the write-up on the Old North neighborhood, the survey report. So it is basically between 9th and 11th, and then bound by like Kaufman and Pratt-ish. So a lot of bungalows. The interesting part of that area of town is it was originally its own city called North Longmont,
Right.
and it was its own city because people wanted to drink. It was all about alcohol.
So it's a fun city.
Yeah. So yeah, the main part of Longmont was a little stuffier and a dry city, but the folks in the north said we want saloons, dagnabbit. So that information is all in there. Let's go. Where did I go? Okay, so we are related to that working. Oh wait, I'm talking about the Old North surveys in a second. So hold on one moment, please. So we are working on the application for the SHF grant. The LOI actually is getting submitted Monday, so it's about to press. Melanie's about to press the submit button on it. For the Cannery East Kensington neighborhood. Talking to Damien at the conference, there is potential for, it looks like we might be eligible for the changing the narrative points due to association with the Latino community there's a sculpture in the park that is not quite 30 years old, but as Damien put it, I'm creative and close enough, so we can probably get state register on it. So Melanie's working on setting up a meeting with our Art and Public Places coordinator to see kind of what kind of relationship or tie-in we can do with that. So I'm working on trying to start getting with our budget folks as well as our procurement folks because we do have to have council approval of matching fund appropriation. But obviously we can have that process rolling while the grants are being reviewed. So they can kind of run concurrently ish. And then we did talk, Melanie and I both spoke with a few different consultants, including Ron from Tatanka at the conference. So we're confident that we can get at least a couple of responses this time around. The feedback we got from at least one of the one of the consultants who does survey work is that, yeah, in October, before October, people were kind of holding their breath because they weren't sure if, it's like, do we go after something if we don't know that the money will ever actually be available because of reasons. So that was probably part of it. So we are working on that. If we are able to make that change in the narrative case, it could be a pretty interesting tie-in.
So SHF isn't affected by federal funding.
Okay.
And
Yes. I think there was just general consternation.
Totally.
Back then, and
It was a tough-
potentially still now. But we'll see.
It was a tough.
Yeah, so fortunately SHF is all dependent on people gambling. So.
So Jennifer, you found a bunch of Old North
Yeah.
surveys.
Yes.
I handed you the thumb drive of some
Yes.
lost ones on the east side.
And we have those all loaded up, and we.
So did you find more on Compass or in bags or in closets or things for the west side or more for the east side or other places besides Old North?
I have not yet.
Okay.
It seems that we the west side was never as thoroughly surveyed as the east side, obviously.
Right.
We have their National Register nominations. We do have a number of we do have a few surveys for the west side. I have not found any more than we already have.
You can't
So-
find them on Compass and bring them back that way.
It doesn't look like there's a ton on Compass, but
Okay.
I haven't. That's another.
I was just wondering.
That's
what
one
else
of
is out there.
those efforts that we will get to when we have some extra time. It was definitely a giant time suck, shall we say, when I was going through Brian's boxes and said, "Oh, well, this would have been good to have a year and a half ago." So it was definitely. Yeah, definitely. We've spent a lot of time going through stuff, and Melanie has one of the few computers in the office that still has a CD drive. So
I did find a small amount of surveys from the lower main portion where the mat company is, like the rub.
Oh. Yeah.
So a couple of those buildings were included as well. Primarily Old North had the biggest.
yeah,
chunk.
Old North had the biggest chunk. So as we do the website updates, we will get these added to the interactive map. That was our workaround for accessing the surveys when everything got taken down for ADA compliance issues. So yeah, we will continue to work on that. But yeah, so Old North surveys, these dots, this is from Compass. This basically shows where there are surveys. So quite a few. It's
What's the boundaries?
so 9th on the south. So south is 9th Avenue, north is 11th. Pratt
Kaufman to
Street,
Pratt,
Pratt Street on the west and Kaufman on the east.
Okay, thank you.
So this is the area. Basically 35 properties were surveyed in 2013 to 24. It looks like another 20 were done in 2010 to 2011. 42 acre area over about 8 square blocks. And as I mentioned, we are going to work to include the surveys on the interactive map as part of our overall website update. Just have to, a lot of this is prioritizing our GIS specialist time as well. So.
This is what was the hundreds of pages and
Yeah, this
all
was
those
the
property by
this was
property.
all the extra stuff that I put in. I was like, since we haven't seen these before, here's what we found.
And I apologize that I did not look at everything that you sent. Were
okay.
these done, do you know what standard that the surveys were done to? Like,
No.
were they like National Register surveys? Were
I think they
they
were National Register surveys.
Reconnaissance surveys? Okay.
Yeah, they were the same degree they were the same level of detail as the East Side surveys that we.
Okay, so do we have DOEs on those from OAHP? Do we have determinations of eligibility?
I don't recall.
Okay.
I don't recall. But I do believe, I don't know if there was an official DOE, but there were definitely were recommendations from Carl of what they had. So. And we do, and if we need to turn the lights on, please let me know. We just have them off to make the screen a little more clear for the camera purposes.
So,
Yeah.
Jumping back to the grant for Kensington, could maybe you walk through the timing on all of that? So you've got a grant application that's due 1st of April,
1st of April.
and then the state makes a determination in June or something, or is it?
We would
May or
find
June?
out in June.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so then if we are approved, then you would put together the RFP.
Yeah, we have to go through the procurement process. And realistically, we're gonna have, just from a staffing standpoint, the summer's gonna be a little interesting for us. And so we would be going through procurement in the summer. So realistically, we're probably looking at some time in the fall. So
When that starts.
When that
the
starts.
consultant starts their work.
yes, so yeah, in the middle of all this as well, I have to get my child graduated from high school and started in college. So
So you have a first year.
I have big we have big life events happening among staff right now. Okay.
On top of that, I'm leaving Jennifer to have a baby in June, so that will
Again, I'm not sure it was approved by anyone.
A quick vote, please. So if anyone needs me, I'll be huddled in the fetal position in the summer.
So it'll be a surveyed field?
What's
It'll
that?
be a surveyed field?
Can I ask, just so so how was it determined to prioritize Cannery East Kensington for this application?
Yeah, so, again, Old North was the original priority, but then we found out after the fact, oh wait, this has already been done. Oops. So it really looked at potential, development pressures, natural disaster pressures. So this Kensington Cannery East, there's a feature called the slough that runs through the middle of it, and it runs through Kensington Park. And I know it was definitely impacted. It's a floodway, so it was definitely impacted by the floods. So that was a big factor in it, and plus, it's adjacent to the east side. So, we haven't seen too many development pressures yet impacting existing structures, but given its proximity to the center of town, to the sugar factory area, just on the other side of 3rd at Morton, you've got the 2nd Morton apartment complex going up as well. So there's some concerns that this particular area would be.
So the priority was to figure which area is most sort of threatened.
Right, yeah, and it's
Which might have a greater amount of
Historic properties
Yeah.
that could be.
And if nothing else, it's we can get it documented.
Yeah.
One of the other one of the kind of challenges, I was hoping to have more extensive outreach to the community. We have worked with our neighborhood services group to Guillermo, who tried to put us in contact with folks who have been in the past part of a neighborhood organization, but they currently have a lapsed neighborhood group, and I have not heard back. I reached out separately to the folks to the neighborhood contacts Guillermo provided. I reached out separately to them after he made the introduction. I haven't heard back from them. So, my hope was to have some neighborhood community engagement in this to further the buy-in, and it may still happen, but we just haven't heard back from the community members on that.
Is that largely Latino?
At this point, I'm not certain. I need to touch. Historically, it was a Latino neighborhood.
Because I'm wondering if El Comite
That's a good thought.
would be a good intermediary, because being just reached out to by the city may be off-putting. And I'm wondering if an organization like that would help kind of mediate the conversations, especially if there's a lot of non-English speakers.
Yeah, that's a very good thought.
I'm also hoping that the collaboration with Art in Public Places helps with that, because they have recently done a successful turf conversion near the Unity Project mural that they were mentioning for adding to the state register. And there was originally, when the piece was put in, I think 1998, that was a community project. The artist is Longmont, and is still in the area. So it was originally a community project, and when they did the turf conversion to protect the mural, they did some xeriscaping, and that was additionally a community project. So there's a lot of passion in the area around Kensington neighborhood, so I think there's some ways that we can hopefully tie in to some of that engagement.
Yeah, so we've got a few different sets of feelers out, but they all come and take question.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
Yes, because I've been at the executive director, and she's
Okay.
pretty cool. So.
Yeah, I think I met her briefly at a chamber event, so. All right. Anything else on surveys, or shall we go on to our favorite demolition
Yeah,
ordinance?
let's
do this.
Josh.
All right. Demolition ordinance overview. We have a couple of newer commissioners who did not go through the full process of doing this update, which our previous director spearheaded with our city attorney's office. So basically, in a nutshell, our historic preservation code, specifically section 2.56.180, and I did include this specific section of the code in your packet as well. It requires historic preservation review of proposed demolition of non-landmark properties that are more than 50 or more years old and located within the original town site, which is roughly it's the square mile that's basically from 1st to 9th to Bowen and Bowen to Martin. So there are two potential levels of review. The first one is me reaching out to Steve going, hey, do you think this rises to the occasion of the full commission needing to look at it? And in some cases, it doesn't. It might just be a crappy cinder block building of some sort that happened to be built in the 60s, but doesn't have any particular significance. But there are some that do definitely rise to that occasion. We had two that, one kind of an unofficial review and to provide guidance, and that property is still standing. I'm not sure what that particular owner is still doing. Is doing yet. But yeah, so then if it's something that's potentially significant, then it comes to the commission to take a look at. And really, the question that the commission needs, the question that the commission considers when evaluating these requests is there reason to believe that the property is eligible for landmark designation without the owner's consent? That is the threshold. So we have two different thresholds for landmark status. One is with the owner's consent, which is a list of criteria of which only one necessarily needs to be met in addition to age. And then the other is without the owner's consent, in which you need to meet, I'll get into this one in just a second, which it's basically a much higher bar. You have to, there are additional criteria in addition to the ones established for owner's consent. So there are 5 main criteria, at least under the demolition ordinance, for designation without the owner's consent. There is an additional criteria if someone is seeking to landmark a property outside of the demolition process. And that would be there's a petition, like an official petition requirement. There's certain requirements that that the clerk's office, city clerk's office establishes for valid petitions. It's not just a change.org petition. So those 5 criteria are, does it meet one or more designation criteria in subsection A, which is the criteria for designation with the owner's consent? Does it have, and this was kind of what the commission got hung up a bit, not hung up, but this was really the subject of debate for the Kembark Street property. Does the property have extraordinary historic significance? And there is a definition that we went through for that, and that is established in the code.
That definition, I think, was really critical in at least the commission's determination.
Yes.
Because I think there was a whole, that, but by itself, I don't think, just that phrase, those 3 words,
Yes.
people were not thinking that it did in fact meet, but then when you read the actual definition that the city attorney read, it's broader than what you might think when you read those
Yeah.
3 words.
Yeah.
I said, did we do that? Really? I didn't. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
amazing.
It's
Yeah.
worth
Yeah,
But
so,
that's, yeah.
reviewing that too.
but then there's, you know, the condition question, and then there's the hardship economic value question. So,
And I think too, going back to like what you were saying with the definition of architectural significance, there's also that definition of hardship. How people define hardship, like, oh, I'm not gonna make $1 million on this project, that's my hardship. Is that really hard? You know, so,
there's
It's a
also,
judgment.
when we're in the zoning world, when we're evaluating variances, if something requires a variance from code requirements, you know, the question is it a real hardship or is it a self-imposed hardship?
Right.
yeah.
Right,
Mhm.
right.
So,
Yeah, I feel like there was a lot of amnesia there on, or, you know, a lack of interest in knowing what their barriers were, or I don't even quite know how to put it, but, you know, when somebody talks about living in the Bonnie Bray area and the different things that they said, I think economic hardship means different things to different people.
Mhm.
And,
Right.
you know, I think we talked about it, and I think
Yeah,
it had been
yeah.
a couple of little older ladies who owned a house and it was falling down around them, and they just literally could not afford to have someone come in and shore up the foundation and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
That's a very different thing than a developer who has put down a bunch of money to buy a house, had expected to
With-
make a ton of money
Mhm.
on a very large, you know, they wanted to put in condos originally.
yeah, they originally.
Which was a
Yeah.
very different way than they ended up going.
Mhm.
Yeah, their original proposal was for something that did not in any way, shape, or form meet the city subdivision codes. So yeah, it was definitely, it was an interesting property, shall we say, and an interesting ownership group. So, but yeah, so that's really where you get into the question. And so, if that finding, if the commission finds that the criteria are met or could potentially be met, it refers the demolition request to city council. And city council must make the same finding. If they find that there is reason to believe that the property could be eligible for designation without the owner's consent, then it gets referred back to staff to initiate the designation process. If not, then demolition can proceed. They made the latter findings. So, and I think in the meeting following, you know, the commission meeting following the council meeting, you know, the discussion was a good one, and it's, you know, one of the lessons learned is that as a commission, you know, probably need to be very clear in the findings that are sent to city council.
Well, because, just to clarify for me, because I didn't understand this going in, no one could have attended or spoke to the city council, correct? That is not actually
You
appropriate.
could have attended, but
You
But you
can't
can't speak.
stand up and say, here's why we
Right.
said what we
Right.
did, which is
Right.
why the communication
It's reflected in
didn't go
the,
through. and-
it's reflected in the minutes and the record.
So can, and I don't know this either, so can, as a commission, we like write up a more specific report and send it?
Yes.
Like, so
we
that.
need to create a statement of
Actual,
findings.
yes, okay,
Yeah.
Mhm.
yes.
This is the
This is-
determination,
Mhm.
and this
Is
is
why,
all the
right, and
reasons
break it
why,
down. So
and that
here's
had to
the
be
first
important.
Right.
definition of architectural
Right,
significance, and
Because
this is
that
how
would
it
have been
meets
us
it.
standing up and speaking in front of them instead of
Right.
them just
That's-
getting
So-
this, why are they
okay.
passing it on to
Yeah,
us?
they had no idea. They had no clue
Right.
what was going on, and
Okay.
that's a learning curve because we've never done it before.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
and my guidance from our city attorney's office was that staff's recommendation should not change. But the staff report to council should have discussion of what the commission recommended. So that was
Right. That
done.
makes sense.
And that's totally fair,
Yeah.
right? Because we made our determination separately. We just didn't, we needed to have a separate kind of preservation
But
commission.
then it
report.
sort of came across to them as staff told us no.
Right.
we
Yeah,
said-
it was
Mhm.
not-
You know,
Right,
I think they
right.
just saw a bunch of conflict and it was
Uh-huh.
thrown on them
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
why would we vote
I
for this?
I don't begrudge there. Doug, I know you're
Yeah.
waving at me, so.
Councilman Marston made a report, an oral report through Steve at the last meeting, that city council was changing their procedures, and that they would no longer it would no longer be necessary for them to review decisions of HPC and other.
That only related to.
So I don't.
That's
that don't-
applications.
Yeah, that
to
only,
the
that only
commission.
relates to board appointments, to
Yeah.
board and commission
Although, what
appointments.
is the role of the council liaison? I'm thinking, frankly, I think the mayor failed us on explaining
Mhm.
what our discussion was, because we did have an in-depth discussion. It was a well thought out,
Because she
I
could
think,
have done it.
decision. She could,
Okay.
I mean, they are the liaison.
Yeah, the
And Jake,
liaison-
hi Jake, you're probably burping your baby back there or something on video. I hope you see this, but I don't understand the role of council liaison, other than advising us on what the council's. It's not a one-way discussion.
It's a
It should be
two-
going both
it-
ways.
it should
And what
be.
should their role be in this procedure is my question. I don't know.
It's really a relaying the information role. So they aren't there to advocate one way or another.
But they could fill in the blanks on our discussion
Correct.
and why we made the decision, because even though we didn't have it in writing, we didn't do it as correctly as well as we could have. It could have been verbally passed on at the meeting, and it wasn't.
That's a good point.
Or
That's a
is,
good
or
point,
is
yeah.
it possible that, and this is hypothetical, she's not here, our other liaison isn't here, that she didn't agree with us
I don't know.
and thus didn't communicate that to us?
But I think the way to cover it all is
That really
Yeah.
detailed
It's
report.
written
Yeah.
Yep.
Nobody can argue with it, this is what they said.
Right.
Or at least they can
Yeah.
see
Better
the
to be
point
in
of view.
writing.
Right.
I think
Just put it in
ultimately,
writing.
this was uncharted territory for both the
Yeah,
commission and for
that's
council,
fine.
and especially
Well,
for
it's important we
council.
learn
Yeah.
from it.
Yeah, and it's especially because
Yeah.
council,
Yeah, that wasn't a criticism, I'm just
Yeah,
wondering,
it's-
it is possible.
It is, yeah, and I think it's,
Because they don't
it's a
vote.
function of, you have a number of new council members who weren't there when, the demo ordinance was amended. And realistically, there's often a short memory, when things are done as well. So, just as a function of so many things that they do.
Yeah, we can't expect them to, I mean, it's written in the meeting minutes, but you gotta read through,
Right.
several pages of meeting minutes, they got
Right.
100 things on the agenda, and if
Yeah.
you did that, you would
Very
never.
concise report,
Right.
and
So we should
yeah.
bullets,
Yeah.
this, that, and.
Right. But then, a point of order, how does that actually get done?
How does, well,
Yeah.
so it would be part of the motion, right?
Okay.
So if, and this is where it gets tough, so
Okay.
you would have to say, okay, I move to, refer to council, this project for a landmark designation without the owner's consent, based on these findings, and then sit and
Okay.
Run
walk
along.
through them in your motion.
Okay.
Right, so it becomes part of the motion includes the report. I believe
I-
that's how that would happen.
Yeah, and at
Okay.
least from my way of doing things, I would include the full motion and findings as part of the staff report, recognizing that minutes don't always
But
get,
they aren't read.
don't always get read, yeah.
So
Right.
everything has, whatever report we write or whatever, everything has to be done at that meeting?
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yes.
correct.
Yes.
Well, no, wait. Before we all say yes. There's no reason why we can't reach conclusions and ask the staff to come back
There actually
with a,
are,
with a,
because there are time constraints baked into the ordinance.
listening.
I don't have the time constraints with me, but if you read the full ordinance, there are specific time clocks, where, as far as when things need to
That's right.
happen. Yeah.
Like every 2 months, in 2
Yeah.
months.
But
or
we couldn't
something.
take like an extra day to go over things and then,
I don't believe that's.
yeah, okay,
Yeah.
all right,
Yeah,
I'm just
yeah,
wondering.
I disagree.
Yeah.
Let's just
I- I
suppose he
just-
decides to write up a little bit
I have a
differently than the way our
problem
discussion.
reaching a
So,
conclusion
Putting it in the minutes,
based on
putting it in the
information that
motion.
is in front of us.
Just-
Now,
I
I'm
think that's our
told
job,
that there are
though,
time
to-
clocks, but I'm not sure what those time clocks are, and it's not being presented to us. And I don't know whether we could meet those time clocks, because nobody's telling me what they are.
Well, I think, at least from my perspective, that's a hearing. It's a public hearing.
Right.
We have to make a determination. If we're a quasi-judicial body, we can continue it. I mean, you can move to continue to the next meeting if you don't think you have enough information. But if you're going to make a motion to whatever, to refer that to council, if that's your motion, my point is you have to have the reasons for, you have to list the reasons why in the motion if you want that to be succinctly communicated to council.
But what I'm suggesting is, if we had time, and so I don't know that we don't, we could have a discussion and then ask staff to prepare a report for us to be considered at the next meeting, and that we would have all that stuff in
Staff had their own
it.
report.
Yeah.
They had a separate report from us, so they can't prepare our report.
So we have to hire counsel.
No, that's our job.
Well, can't
So
we
we
can
can hire
it?
So our job
So-
is to do it, but so we can have a
Right.
volunteer do it.
Here's my recommendation. At a future meeting, possibly April, we've already got we've got a couple items on the March agenda. We have one that I think is going to generate a lot of discussion. So at a future meeting, March or April or May potentially, I can ask our counsel, Jeremy Terrell, to come to a commission meeting and basically do a demolition ordinance revisited session to talk through all of these issues from a legal standpoint, as far as what is appropriate and is not appropriate for the commission, in terms of reporting, but also in terms of defining the shot clock effectively. Just the time limits that are in the ordinance. So they are established in the ordinance. So there's a very specific, there are very specific timelines called out, and so that I think that might be useful if that's something that the commission is interested in having. I can arrange for that.
Just so I understand, Jeremy has advised you that you can't report to the city council, that the report on its own has to stand, that any comments you made would be ex parte.
Me personally or the commission?
No, you as staff.
Me as staff, I don't have the same ex parte restrictions that the commission has.
So you could give a report that, what was he then objecting to?
No, I was advised to keep my recommendation the same because it wasn't an appeal per se. So I was advised to keep my recommendation the same, but include a section describing the commission's recommendation. So that they had both.
Because you, as the staff member, your job is to create a report that says this is what we as the staff recommend. And if the
Correct.
commission makes a different, or whatever kind of motion they make, theirs may be the same or may be different, correct? It's
And
different.
there's a
I mean,
record.
it's two different bodies.
And the minutes are included, were included and are included as part of the application package.
Right.
So,
And at the last meeting.
Do you have the opportunity?
At the last meeting, we said that we wanted you, the next time something like this happens, to present the discussions and the decisions of the commission.
based on a specific set of findings and recommendations.
Right, based on
So
our
if the commission had made findings and presented those in the record, I would have included that in the report. If there had been
There are
specific,
two different reports. One is,
it would have been
one
a
is
component.
Yeah, we would have had the original staff report and the original staff recommendation
Yeah.
and the commissioner's
It's, yeah.
challenge to that because I think where we got hung up is this commission has historically been really kind of everybody's followed in line. Like we make a ton of unanimous decisions, more so than any place I've ever seen. And we're normally in
Work
line
well
with staff, right? So it's great, but when it goes off the rails a little bit, we didn't have a way to deal with it. We didn't
Right.
understand what was going to happen. So we've always been in line with staff, and
Right.
almost always. And so then I think our perspective was, well, staff's just going to present what our finding was, but it was different than staff, and so it needed to be a lot more detailed. And I don't think it's a giant deal. I think if you're making that conversation, you're making the motion, you pick your points and you just make sure you hit them.
Yes.
And my recommendation, I'm sorry to interrupt, to interject. My recommendation is to have our council come to a meeting and really clarify, and really
just sort of
clarify,
like
just so
everyone-
everyone understands.
So-
from
so-
the standpoint.
My quick question though is, it sounds like there's nothing actually wrong with the demolition ordinance.
No.
No,
It
it's
was
the
how we
communication.
interpreted
Right,
it and
yeah.
communicated it.
Right.
Because when we sat there as a group, we worked through it.
Yeah.
My recollection was that we
Yep.
all worked through it, and by the time we all worked through it, we were all on the same page, like,
Yeah.
this is how this could work, and it all worked with this. This isn't wrong.
No, there's nothing wrong with
Right.
it. with the ordinance,
Yeah.
yeah.
Question is, how's that communicated to the city
Nope,
council?
that was first.
Jennifer, when you present this, do you
I know
have
you're trying
the
to say.
leeway to explain
Hold
further?
on.
No, go ahead, it's okay.
One at a time.
All
Just
right, yeah,
because
all
we're,
right,
just
I'm
because
gonna-
we're recording.
This has been a little intentionally free form, but I'm gonna take over a little more, just because this is great, but let me point to who's talking, so we've got a little more. So Don, you were next.
I was just gonna ask you, Steve, would it be helpful, like, if we came up with kind of like a, what do I wanna say? Kind of like a rough draft, like, form, like, saying, like, if we have to come up with a specific report at our meetings, like, we would look at, like, okay, architectural significance and list out, like, the different, like, it has the architecture, it has
That's what I was gonna say.
a specific person, an event, hardship, define what hardship is, and have that already set to go, and then just fill in what we need to at the
So-
hearing, at the meeting.
My recommendation was going to be, do we have a template that
Template,
lays
that's
out
the word
these
I'm looking
things?
for.
Because I think where we have difficulty, where I have difficulty, I won't speak for all of you, is we have people come in front of us who talk at us, and then we talk back. And then we have to remember all the different conversation and then summarize it and try to put it into a motion.
Yeah.
And if we can just take a second to pause, maybe write that out, make some notes during the meeting.
Yeah, we have the
but
template
in a
with
way
us
that
and-
is, so if we had like a demolition ordinance template, so we could say, this is
Yeah.
how we have,
These are the
and
five
then
things.
someone can be like, okay, here's my motion, bam, 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 my statement of findings.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah, I
yeah,
think
or
that's what
that
we
was
need
much
to
clearer than what I was trying to say, thank you.
Very good.
Yeah, Rick, did you
That's
have
perfect.
something?
Well, I was just wondering, when you present the staff recommendation and the council recommendation, are you entitled to elaborate on why, when there's a difference, what the difference was, or
Yes,
do you
and
just do
I
the presentation?
I include description of this is staff's recommendation based on X. The commission differed from staff's opinion and recommended Y. So I definitely included that information in both my written report and in my presentation to City Council.
But you discuss why there was a difference conclusion, or is that not part of what your job is to do at that point, or is it just to present the two recommendations, let them go with it?
Pretty much that, because they're
Okay.
looking at the ordinance, they're taking what has been presented, and then they're taking that information against the ordinance,
Okay,
and reaching their own conclusion effectively.
right.
So that is the difference. But I do think it would be helpful if Jeremy comes to a future meeting and kind of gives a refresher on the ordinance and the commission's role and how the commission should be communicating findings if they're different from
Right.
staff.
Sounds
That would be
good.
great. And
Yeah.
the one caution is going to be to make sure that this doesn't automatically predetermine an outcome.
Correct.
Right.
Right.
The template has to have enough, if it's a template or whatever, it
Right.
has to have enough flexibility in it that it's just really a useful tool to organize thoughts and
Yes.
and be able to say,
It's-
yes, this meets the threshold or not.
Yeah, it's like yes, no.
Right.
Why?
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
no, why?
Right.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be really helpful.
Okay.
So let's
I
plan
can-
on that.
I can arrange
Because this
that.
was complicated and
Yeah.
obviously involved a lot of discussion.
All right, with that, we are at the 10-minute break, which I did not
Great.
include on the agenda,
No,
but
I
I
know,
realized
yeah.
it would be very helpful.
Especially right now. That's always good.
So we
right.
will officially be right at the halfway point when we come
Okay.
back, so.
There we go.
If you have not been in this building before, there is a restroom directly across the hall.
And be careful walking over here, there's cords
Yeah,
everywhere.
if you go around, to go to the snack table, please go around that
That's
way.
why I rudely have my chair.
Because
Here.
if anyone's going to trip over the cords, it should be me.
Get some water.
As long as plugged.
All right.
Demolition code. I'm trying to find it.
It should be an attachment in the packet. I definitely included it.
Yeah, I couldn't find what page it was on.
Okay, I don't.
There's a lot of pages.
Usually, if you access the packet in HTML format, you can do individual attachments.
Oh, they're okay.
Yeah, it's just more to make sure that it stays.
Yeah, also for you.
Yeah. Melanie's gonna see if she
Is this what Maria said?
What's
You
that?
said packet, is that what Maria said?
Yes. The link.
That's a Word document.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, I know.
Trying to stare at the bedroom.
Agenda.
You see, there's still full battery, but they can record like
She
100
said
hours.
two things.
Good, I won't plug it in yet until everybody.
Directly across.
And your order should be fine. Still says there's like a multiple battery.
Oh, does it? Oh,
I
that's a
checked.
good battery.
So, and the sound recorders do as well. And when I checked them before, they said they could record like 100 hours. So,
Oh, wow.
all of that should be fine.
It's that
Did you get the demo?
Well, there's the packet right there.
Yeah.
It's a
Okay,
little
you
bit-
got it off of the.
Yeah, if you go to the agenda management portal, it should be, it was just for the agenda management portal.
I got it off the agenda management board.
Yeah, she got it off the agenda management.
So you can do
Not
that.
what you
Yeah,
said.
but we get the latest.
But Maria usually says, don't click on to agenda management report and it takes you there. That's what she usually sends you.
Yeah.
Every house in the state is different.
So there has to be a Longmont area agenda management,
So what courses are you teaching this
And
semester?
that became.
website that's on there too.
You
We're
can't
on
afford houses.
USB and on
Okay, cool.
We, at the time I was married, and
That was one of my favorite classes in college.
ex-husband's.
Well, so my first time teaching it, I
Was it?
had a colleague who taught for many years who's retiring, and so
You're already
it's in my.
This is the agenda right here.
Where's the?
My kid is taking U.S. history right now, so I don't think there's any idea.
This is just.
Yeah, that's well. It's always funny because I teach modern.
I
US
understand that, you got it, so
I ask
you
students
get.
the answer why
Is
is
that
that
what this
this
is?
reason, and that's often the reason.
This is
Like, we didn't get to that
They
yet.
didn't get to that.
Huh, interesting.
Yeah.
That's what it's scheduled, so.
Yeah, I have my
Those are emails.
passive aggressive education.
That's all she
shelf
sent them,
outside of
not
teacher's
gentrified,
bedroom, which has like all
you
my
know,
old
bottom
college,
and
like,
neighborhood like
because
that.
my
This is
interest was
Spanish.
always in like social movements,
Yeah.
especially,
Okay.
So I guess you can't put somebody in
Yeah.
But you can get
Well, I just wanted to clarify.
and social
Oh, my
movements,
parents' house.
a number of books that have some source material on that as well, so read this.
Remember the.
Where's the so he's looking at colleges right now, or
Yeah,
is it
I'll
like-
be at CSU in the fall.
Okay.
So most likely study, the plan is to study art, maybe music, maybe with some music, so
Okay.
we'll see. You know, we all changed our majors, what, how many times?
Yeah, many
Over
did,
the
yeah,
college.
that's true.
Like, personally, I went from architecture to sociology, and urban planning for graduate school, so it's all really different.
All different paths.
My parents' house and two other houses beside it called the Three Little Pigs. So now we're, my dad passed away, we have someone's house, and somebody bought it, and we praying.
So did we figure out what page that was on in the whole thing?
If you go to the agenda management portal, you should, as opposed to the full
And part of it was
PDF
Dad,
packet.
because Dad said, going ahead.
Yeah, go to the, if you go to the agenda management portal and access the HTML agenda,
There was just too much stuff.
you can get to,
That's the problem.
yeah, the attachments are typically broken out.
It's in the
Yeah,
letter.
get that.
There you go.
Fast.
Yeah.
At a
It's
certain
in her
point.
letter.
And it
First line.
Yeah, so,
Has been posted on agenda.
Go back to
If you
school,
click on that.
yeah.
Takes you to agenda. So if that's okay.
That's like interesting, 'cause, yeah, that was.
so much easier than sitting through 99 pages.
Yes.
This is.
That was what I was trying to do, and I'm like, wow. Oh, there we go.
I always tell people to go to the agenda management portal because it's
But
much,
it's, it says there, the
cleaner.
meeting packet's been posted on agenda
I'll
management.
tell you what
She
I'll
said
do.
it's on the rest
Oh,
of it.
okay, where?
It's 17th.
Which one?
That's when you
No, that's
respond.
when I replied.
It's a nothing but, I mean,
No, my uncle and aunt.
oh, yeah,
Small
yeah.
town.
Sort of, equidistant from Boston
Somebody to her,
Providence.
no.
Okay.
I think I replied the same
Oh,
day.
yeah,
it
so
looks
you're
like.
pushing the water.
Yeah,
Yeah, she sent it at 10 in
Yeah,
the
it was
morning and I
Canberra.
responded
yeah.
at 2 in the
The
afternoon.
town, I mean,
Was
the
it
town I
17th?
grew up in was,
Go back to the 17th.
its heyday was the
So it's 45
19th
days.
century, and pretty much it's been going downhill.
Yeah, that's
A
to,
lot of, old factory buildings.
45 days to come before the commission.
Because.
Right.
And then once the commission determines it's not eligible without
Again, I'm a
100%,
moderator, so.
You know,
Well, there was
we
a
actually
period
had
not to
a
exceed
highway.
90 days.
a hearing shall be set as expeditiously as possible for city council.
Right, and then the council has 90
That'll
days.
take it to
So,
the
yeah.
agenda
That's all it's
management.
been downtown.
I don't know if there was,
Yeah, we got big mall.
There isn't a period
So
between
there's
the
already
two, I
like
don't
the
think
mall,
And, yeah,
and then
and that's what we're
downtown
looking at,
died,
right?
and
It's
now
like
the
the
malls
malls
died. And so that's February.
and then whether we have to put it into
It's
council,
gonna-
or whether we can take that to the meeting and say, you know,
I like going to Boston, I like going to other places.
Yeah, and it has to happen at a public meeting.
Right, so you have
Oh,
to, not that.
Right, and I think to Sue's
Oh,
point,
right.
right, we can't just have somebody go home and write up a report.
I told you everything I know, and I know nothing more about it.
Like, you know, what it, right, it's like the way we have to,
Okay, Sergeant Schultz.
and we
I
should
am
be
terrible at
agreeing
this.
to our meeting. And it's like,
Nothing.
oh yeah, this
Nothing.
is
That's
said
it.
what I meant. Right, instead of somebody writing it up and be like, no, you misinterpreted me.
Right, now
I
it's been a
forgot
meeting,
about
so
that
you
guy.
don't remember, yeah.
Right.
I think the template.
Who,
is
in
a
the
good
right
idea.
mind, would think.
And I mean, it doesn't have to be anything, I mean, it's
Yeah.
really just like,
Team.
just put it on a piece of
German
paper
prisoner
and leave us
work
some
camp.
space to jot some notes.
Exactly.
What a
Well,
leap
in
of
meeting
imagination
criteria,
and
and I
faith
think
that
she
took.
did know
But I
the
was
criteria,
you know.
the discussion around the
Well,
work criteria.
I thought it was
Yeah,
very
but
clear.
originally we
Is it
were
right?
staff.
I got a whole bunch of all this. Yeah.
And the
But
way
maybe
we were
you're
charting it.
of Nazis
Because
or just making light of it.
Because there was a lot of
Consistency
decisions,
or
that
anything.
was not like a quick decision.
There's about
No, it
It was
wasn't.
too much.
And it was a lot.
Television back then, just
We were all
trying
just
to
immediately like, no, we don't.
deal
Yeah.
not so much.
No, yeah.
just the processing
I think there
of
was
all
a
that trauma.
But it's funny,
People are like, oh, yeah, I guess.
Well, we've gotta
they're
just
probably
let go.
right.
Right.
Yeah, and then we're like, oh, wait, no.
So we always come back. Family.
Also,
And every
it's
single
fair
time.
to remember, like, it'll be great to have Jeremy come talk to us. He's not there to work for us to make sure
It's sort of
the story.
Yeah,
always do.
Right,
This is
right.
very true.
Well,
He's there
Well,
to
I was a
ask.
kid.
Like I said, they tell
My
you how to
parents'
do it.
generation, you know, I'm not
No,
going
he's
to
not. He's there to tell, to come to the house.
Because
The city
he is
was
the
waiting to
representation for the city.
Yeah, the guy in the Liberty coming and destroying Tokyo.
Wait a second.
That was just,
No,
I mean,
we have the same conversation about it. He's not there, we're there
what
to
do we
make sure
do
that
when
the state doesn't
things
face
beyond
litigation.
comprehension come
So
in and
council's there to
destroy
make sure the
us?
city doesn't face litigation,
I don't get
not to
When I
make
first
sure,
heard
right?
that,
So
that's
there's recommendations for us.
I remember 30 years
Do
ago.
not have to take it as
Right,
right.
go on, it's what's happening.
But what is
Right,
Irish
I think so.
is-
And I think it's something to know.
I knew it was
I did too, I was gonna say. You're underneath.
Yes, you
No,
do.
no, I don't listen.
Oh, you don't.
Part of it is here about the house.
I guess that-
That's only
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
HTML. Go to the,
So, yeah.
close that.
Yeah.
Click the HTML agenda.
This is pretty deep in here, huh?
There you go.
It'll be in there.
I don't even
Okay, so he's got an internship.
Oh, I do too. And I'm also like,
I know, yeah.
That's actually the last piece of his degree he has to finish up.
I'm not
So he's going to add it.
This looks like a lot to read. Consider my red. I read
Because I'm sure.
it's only ones out on the map. And then I collected what I got, and then I had to write the story. But I read everything else. Oh my God.
We don't have to put
It
criteria.
was interesting.
It's unique, because we could just make a little bit of they
I was
trying to do it
My dad is the
after
most
all the
sports
discussion.
Seriously?
No,
dude. I mean, there was no
Yeah.
Oh, wait,
Just the rest.
It was very, I've never worked for,
Yeah.
I've been on the government. Our committees are very different. So we could go home, write something, and bring it back. This is very, in some ways, wonderful.
So it's in a,
Like everything else. I mean, that's. Our committees were more. So negatives too, like,
and this will pop up and learn now. It's a little weird here. So it looks like this is one.
No, but the older things are the right click on it,
Yeah, or just understanding.
double click.
What's going on?
There it is. Alright, so there you go.
I just learned that. So.
Well, you know more than I do. See if I can do that again.
So mine was.
Here it is.
It's tough on the phone.
It's not, yeah, phones are, but But if you go to the if you go to the agenda management tool, go to HTML rather than the
Whereas I
packet,
feel like
it's on there.
it'll make this huge
There's
decision.
various places.
You're thinking about places more.
See, that's what I. And we had made huge decisions, but we had to go back and research. This is just,
Yeah, it's, you gotta do it right.
very frustrating.
Yeah. No, I agree.
So you say you have a baby in June? You just got, what, 4 months?
I know.
You're doing great.
It's been far in the future for so long. I'm like, oh, that's really coming up now.
You're like, wait, that's now.
Like, oh, crap.
More than halfway
Nursery
there?
is ready, so that was a big one.
That's wonderful.
I just remember getting in the car to go to the hospital going, I don't think I'm ready for this.
Is this your first?
Yes.
Oh boy, see every movie you can, go to every restaurant you can find.
I know.
Talk to our
Yeah.
civil council liaison, because he's crazy.
I know. I was like, how?
4 under, like.
Three under, three
Well,
under.
no, he has 4 now, right?
No, he's three.
Isn't this, oh, this is
number
third.
And
No,
his
this
baby
is
was
fourth.
born on my birthday, so I was very excited. I
There you
think
go.
it's third, but I don't know.
I thought he already had 3 and this was the new baby.
But it is in a small.
Still
time
crazy.
span, so
Yeah.
Still crazy.
It's several in a short period of time, and they're officially outnumbered now.
You know, it's kind of like ripping a Band-Aid off. You can go slow and have a little bit of pain over time. Just get it all over with, you know?
My
Just
dad
be
keeps
quick
telling me it's cheaper by the dozen. I'm like, I don't think.
That's how it is.
Not in this
He's
town.
fine. Being a grandpa is a lot easier and more fun sometimes.
This is true.
Yeah, team one and done.
All right, we ready to get back after it?
Go for it. Let's do this.
All right.
So, priorities for the remainder of this year, and the first one we've got is outreach and education.
Yeah.
Where did we end up on template?
What's that?
Where did we end up on using a template? Developing a template?
We're gonna have city attorney show up at the hopefully April meeting and kind of walk through what that might look like.
Okay.
So I don't know, Jennifer, you had it. I assume you were just kind of throwing this up there.
I'm
as a
just throwing this-
conversation topic.
These are our conversation topics. I did not go into any details with any of these. These are our topics of discussion per our agenda or per our February commission meeting.
Okay. So,
So,
talked a little bit about some of this stuff, but I mean, this is made an opportunity to kind of revisit that and make any kind of priorities so that we have, again, something actionable to service that.
We've already mentioned the outreach about when we go to the Strawberry Festival again. We have to coordinate that with the St. Spring Historical Society. I don't know what the date of that thing is.
yeah, I don't recall the date of it either. You know, look that up real quick. Yeah, so I don't recall that either. I vaguely remember it being in April or May.
Spring sometime.
Spring, it's all kind of a blur. So we'll have to look at scheduling for that as well. Yeah, as I mentioned, between getting this grant application done and getting a lot of the state materials, state required materials completed as well, I've already got a lot on my plate for the spring. So I'm just putting this out there from an expectation management standpoint and keeping your staff liaison from having a complete meltdown.
Well, and I think the idea with some of this is, you know, if commissioners want to make the commission more active, that's about the commission volunteering to do things.
Yeah.
Right,
So
yes,
I agree.
definitely.
I agree.
It's not
Yes.
about, these are all the ideas that we have for you.
Yeah, no, this,
You have a lot to do.
And I volunteered
So-
last year to
Yeah.
work with you on it, Jeff. Be glad to do it again.
Okay.
I can do it again too.
May
That's fine.
16th and 17th.
And we circulated, Jennifer and I are circulating a sign-up list. People just put their names in, 2 hours during the day, and we didn't have any trouble getting people. And when we didn't have people, it was just blank slate.
Sure.
But we didn't have anything else other than that. So if you want to do handouts or
And this is one I will say that is going to be an extremely difficult weekend for me to do. Because the following weekend is my kid's high school graduation, and I'm going to be tied up with house guests.
Yeah. And again, I don't
I'll be
think there's an
glad to-
expectation that you
No,
are
I'm
required
just
to
saying,
agree.
this is
Yeah.
something that I would not be able to attend most
Yeah.
likely.
Yeah.
So, and then, you know, we have the wild card here.
Mary?
So I have a suggestion, and I don't know if I know what I'm suggesting. Having been in Longmont, and I'm involved with the chamber and some other things, I think Longmont is 2 communities. Longmont is the group of people who have been here forever. A lot of retirees, a lot of people who have been involved in historic library, museum, etc. They're kind of this core group that books everything way before anybody else can get into them. Found out several times through the museum that you can't actually get into anything because it's the same 50 people who book every time. How do we reach the other people? With all due respect to the organization that is the city and the museum and the library and everything, it feels like there's a whole, this is not a small town. And it feels like there is a whole lot of community out there that other ethnicities, other people with kids, etc., who don't know anything about these things and are not in this I've lived in Longmont for 75 years group. And my whole family has been here for generations and that thing. I just, like I say, I don't know what I'm asking, but it feels like there's a group out there that probably doesn't know anything about any of this stuff.
Right.
And may live in these areas where they're being affected by growth and by apartments and by farms that we're seeing and we wish we could preserve something of and that sort of thing. And how do you educate that group?
That's why I was thinking the street festival. If we could think of an activity in a booth or something to draw them in and make them interested. Because you get all comers there. You have a lot of young families. People come from all around the city to go to those street festivals. Yeah, if we just go to the museum and do something, no, we're going to get to the other folks.
Yeah.
What we need to do is get the folks who don't even realize that they're interested in historic preservation. So but we'd have to find something interesting to do with a booth if we were
Right,
to
yeah,
do
that-
that.
Right, and I do think that's, yeah.
I don't know we have to be all that interesting. I mean, I go to those
It's worked
festivals
for me
all the
so
time.
far in life.
Yeah. No, they've got bowls of candy, you wander up and you take their flyer and,
Some
Right,
historic
like-
building as a coloring, wasn't there one,
Yeah.
there was some, a couple
Yeah.
years ago, there was some group and, I
Blue
don't
Line.
remember what it
Yep.
was.
Yeah.
They did, color the building.
Was that
Yeah, it could
Buena
be-
Vista or
yeah.
something? Buena Vista.
yeah.
Or
we
like
could
on
do all
this
sorts
slip
of
of
stuff.
paper, write, I don't know, your favorite space is Longmont, just something, I mean, I don't know,
Doesn't
just,
have to be historic. What's your
Yeah.
favorite building? What's your
yeah,
favorite?
write it down on
what
a
do you think
piece
is
of
the?
paper, put it in the
Yeah.
thing, I don't know, just like little
Because
things like.
something
what's the
that,
scariest
something that
house?
hit me about the demolition of that house
Yeah.
is there was a lot of perception that that was a drug house or, there was a lot of rundown, et cetera.
Like, it's just a crappy little house.
There was
Light.
very
Yeah.
little
Those light
education
bulbs,
about and all of us are, because we're enthusiasts, right? We all
Right.
see the really cool Victorian and the gingerbread sort of elements and such. How do you teach people about that stuff? And I do that with mid-century too.
Is
It's
it
like-
op-eds in the Times Call even?
Yeah.
I mean,
But only the old people are.
Yeah, that's-
still a
yeah.
local group.
so,
Or
Like,
or
that's
still
what we're talking
or
about,
still
like-
the Reddit?
And I say that I'm almost 50. Only the old people read the Times Call.
Yeah.
Longmont leaders a little better.
Subreddit
I didn't
pages?
even know that still existed.
Yeah.
I think
I
the-
thought they
Going
went
out his
under.
email.
Yeah.
yeah, I think
Okay.
the key is face-to-face stuff, like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm new to Longmont, so I don't, but like a community center somewhere, I'd be happy, rent out a room and, do something like the psychology of preservation, or something that's like face to face, not writing something or posting something.
I think when the big things, the big, not issue, but tying in with something else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Where people already attend.
Yes,
Something
exactly.
like-
Meet the people where they are.
Go where the people are, yeah.
Which maybe ties in the Tower of Compassion, but again, who's going to attend that?
Right, that's
I'll
just,
bet it's your old
There'll be
Longmont
12
people.
Although when
With
we
no
dedicated-
dissing to the old Longmont people.
Yeah, when we dedicated the National Register Historic District several years ago, though, the Firehouse Gallery did an event. That was pretty well attended. I don't know if anybody, and I don't remember the commission being invited, and I don't remember if I was on the commission yet. I went as History Colorado.
Okay.
There was a lot of folks there.
Huh.
Yeah.
You do some sort of art thing like the firehouse about places.
Do a drinking thing, like hit the pubs.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
That was
that-
actually recommended at one
A
of the
drinking
sessions.
trivia.
That's
That's how
trivia
Crested
thing.
Butte did it. They had
Yeah.
somebody donated a keg and
Or
was like,
to-
"Come tell us your ideas."
the kegger, what's that, the
And
kegger?
the
very
poster
mountain
said
town.
free
It's a
beer.
very mountain town.
It's a very mountain town.
But but it'll draw people and
It
then
Yeah.
give them a beer, they'll start talking and.
Did you ever do anything with Cooper Wine? Because they did a event last year that I mean, do their wine thing, but where they partner with all the businesses in Longmont and we did a tour.
Yeah.
So,
I did that too, and that
It was fun.
It was fun.
And I
It was
learned
really
a
popular.
lot about,
Yeah.
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 I took Elizabeth because she watches my dog, so.
Steve, as far as handouts for the Strawberry Festival,
Yeah.
we could start with the history and preservation of Longmont that's on the website. There's a couple of things there where it says click here. We could actually, when we do the printout of this, we could click on it, copy the actual site,
The
because
website.
it will be able to click off a piece of paper.
Or you just have a really big QR code.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Tell people to
QR
go to the
codes.
QR codes.
Yes.
Which I know you're still kind of working on the website, but even if we just did.
Well, I can create QR codes out of the website. That's
Right. So that's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
maybe just letting people, well, I don't think a lot of people know that website stuff is even there.
Right.
So,
And there's a lot of stuff on here, besides the two places to click. There's just a lot of stuff on what the
Whatever. And then.
what is historic preservation
Shared.
in Longmont? What does it mean?
Over beers.
That would be fun.
I'm sorry.
What is
Yeah,
it
we need
mean?
Maria's trying to take minutes.
Yeah, I think honestly, I think the QR code is probably the smartest way to go because people,
Mhm.
I mean, maybe you'd have some prints, but I think it'd be easy to have a QR code
Yeah.
sign, and then you can get to all the information. And, and that's what most people at this point, I think, are gonna do.
I just put it on a sign at
Yeah.
Yep.
Do you need volunteers for the website? Or is that all a
It's
GIS
a,
thing?
it's a city thing,
Okay.
yeah, it's an internal thing, so.
Okay, it's not a, you could have people help you coordinate or whatever.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's processes and procedures and
okay.
making
So-
sure.
We're kind of roaming around here. I just want to try to put a pin on number one. I'll be glad if Jennifer's conflicts. I'll be glad to lead or I'll follow if somebody wants to take the lead on the Strawberry Festival.
I think you just volunteered yourself.
Okay, that's fine. I did it last year. I had a good time with it. I worked with Jennifer, circulating a list for people to sign up.
Okay.
And then the second thing is handouts. And I can,
You know how to generate the QR code.
I'll try to work on something for the next meeting we can talk about.
Yeah.
I won't circulate anything without running it
Probably
around
something.
the commission.
Yeah.
Have a couple months to do that. May 16th and 17th. Yeah.
Okay, well, that puts a definite marker on one thing. And then I think if there's other ideas about other, festivals or something that's going on in the city, I mean, I would encourage whoever, if you really want to do something like that, maybe get with the city council, figure out when these things are. I'm assuming most of these festivals are all the dates are allocated.
They
right?
should
Is there a
Yeah, the
city
down,
calendar somewhere?
LDDA does a lot of them,
Right.
and they have a lot of the dates as well. And the other thing, like, Melanie had mentioned, working with the Art and Public Places program, there's some tie-in there. I have a very good relationship with Elizabeth at the museum, so there's some potential, partnerships there.
I mean, they have the Thursday night concerts, which are packed in the summers. Again, having
Right.
a QR code or some handouts or something that people can walk by and chat about as they're setting up their chairs.
So I have
Yeah.
a question. How, average citizen in Longmont, do you think they have any idea how this town got started? Because people I talk to, now maybe I've talked to all the new people, but they're like, oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
It's just, maybe the QR code is a did you know?
Yeah.
Did you know
Yeah.
you're part of a planned community, that this is how it
Mhm.
got started? Would give them a little more awareness of
Yeah.
why there's these buildings here that are older. I don't know.
Yeah, and I will say also, I've done presentations with Elizabeth at Museum Talks before. She's, reached out to me on a number of occasions. I also, at least a couple of times a year, get invited to like a Rotary Club or something to talk about this, a variety of things. But I've definitely done a historic preservation specific talk at one of the Rotary Clubs as well. So. There's we do get special requests throughout the year, and with those it's a little easier because I do have a number of kind of canned presentations I can do. So there is that kind of outreach as well.
I've given talks to Rotaries about the tour that I've done from the east side. I've done a number of those, and just thinking off the seat of my pants here, I could give a tour of the east side for Historic Preservation Month, but the problem is advertising it is expensive, and I don't,
I think
so
I think that's a good because Elizabeth at the museum does her historic tours.
she has her own tour.
Yeah, and
Yes.
so I think that's a potential really good partner. I think that's maybe it's reaching out to her and partnering with the museum.
The problem is they limit it to 15 people because they have their special headsets and things, and so you can't really reach a lot of people that way. Is a problem with it.
But it's a start. It's already they already have the following. They already have the infrastructure for that. The other part is LDDA is in the process of installing their markers and their interpretive signage
Is
for
that
their
too? Yeah.
self-guided walking tours. It talks about historic structures in downtown Longmont. So, between LDDA and that's I have fairly regular communications with Kimberly and Delray at LDDA as well. should be reasonably, not easy, but, you know, getting into their events or, you know, talking to them, there may be some ideas there as well.
So, not to open up a whole can of worms, as we're talking about education and outreach, exactly what are we educating on? Like, what is our point that we really want to get across? Because
That's a good
we're
question.
not the group to educate on the history of Longmont. That's
Correct.
not our focus. Okay.
I think that's where it gets into partnerships. You know, looking at the Tower of Compassion, when we get that dedication scheduled, that I think is a perfect way to partner with both the Longmont Museum and the Longmont Historical Society to expand the reach of that.
My answer to your question would be, look, what we're trying to do is identify historic properties in the city
Yeah.
and educate people that if you have a historic property and landmark it, you can get funding. The whole process of the certificate of appropriateness, all that kind of stuff, getting tax credits, that's what we do as a commission. That's the kind of thing we process. So from my perspective, that's what the commission would be talking about is, hey, did you know that you could do this? And did you know that there's all these historic houses around here? And
What even is it?
you can, right, and you can work in the, oh, this was part of the Chicago colony and blah, blah, blah. But the focus from here is really about like this slightly more technical, but opportunity. Yeah, an opportunity.
Right.
Well,
Right.
and
That's just my opinion.
That's,
I agree, and I think the next step too is the why is that important? You know, what are you preserving? And I think for a lot of people, they think of historic villages, or you know, you think of like the East Coast or
Yeah.
something where it's
Williamsburg.
whereas as a lot of the things in Longmont are agrarian and things like that, and how does that play into it? I think there is an education loop there for what is preservation now, kind of. It's not just a craftsman house, it's not just a Victorian home, it's newer places, it's preserving a way of, you know, somehow the history of a way of life through buildings.
There has to be some sort of buy-in for people other than, I don't know, to get them to, I don't know, is our audience just people who already have historic homes, or people who may want to buy one?
I think that's
You know, instead of tearing it down,
Right.
I will buy it because now I understand the importance of it, or
and the opportunity.
in the opportunity,
Yeah.
and then if I do, there'll be help.
Right.
So I think if it's just people in historic homes, we're limiting our focus.
I think
know.
a perfect example from my perspective, again, kind of going back to this demolition house, which is just a weird example, but for me, the huge gasp of putting something that was kind of a fake craftsman,
Yes.
right, in
Yeah.
the place of where this little working class Victorian that preserved kind of what that neighborhood was and how it grew up, and where that massive disconnect was, like,
yeah.
and how appalling that is to somebody who is keyed in historically. Like, it's a lovely home. There was nothing wrong with the house that they wanted to put there, and it was several times bigger and would maybe house several families. I don't think so, but I don't think it was not historically appropriate at all, and was going to overwhelm the whole block. And, you know, and that's a huge education curve for people. If you're not somebody who likes older homes and doesn't look at crumbling foundations as a death trap and doesn't, you know, that's a big leap.
Council thought it was a great idea. They were like, "What? These all look pretty. This will be
Yeah,
nice."
right.
Somebody made a remark like,
And
"Oh,
how
it'd be
you
just
get
great if we
them-
just had a whole row of these nice little homes that you could build.
Right.
Get rid of these old
And
homes."
how you get them to,
Oh my God.
wow, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, and I mean, all of us are like sick to our stomach, but how do you
Right.
communicate that? That's a hard,
Yeah.
Yes.
that's a
Yeah.
big leap for people,
Right.
education-wise.
Yeah.
So,
But that's, these are complicated things to get across, and like, how are we doing
I don't
this? And
disagree.
what does that QR code go to?
Yeah, it has to.
Okay.
Well, that was why I was asking about helping
Yeah.
with the website, is it's
Okay.
like, you know, the website's kind of half done and has just a list and, you know, and I don't know.
Yeah, there is no central, wonderful website about preservation that isn't incredibly
The
complicated.
National Historic
Right,
Register.
yeah. Oh, here, the Secretary of Interior Standards. Have fun with that.
Yeah. Good luck.
We'll go to our graves arguing about them.
Like you were saying though, the heart of that is like the idea of storytelling, right?
Yeah.
So you start with
The story
stories. You start with
Right.
storytelling, you start with stories and
and why it matters. 'Cause
And
that's
why
what
that
you-
matters.
You
It's-
picked
it's
up
that-
from answering those 3 questions. You went, oh,
yeah.
Well, it was
that's who
interesting.
I am.
Yeah.
At the conference, I was sitting next to a guy from Trinidad when they did that church that was in the endangered places, and he was like, "This is terrible. It's like falling down. It's awful." And this is somebody sitting at a preservation conference, right?
Right.
But it had this whole history of being this church and this, you know, it had a history that went with it, and the building was preservable. And I don't, like I say, I think that's a hard
Yeah.
judgment for people sometimes. you
Takes
know?
time.
It does. So, I don't know. I didn't have a great answer.
Yeah.
I will offer the landmark letter that we sent out to landmark properties last year covers the tax credits and incentives for people who already have a landmark home. So we do have that as a basis with QR codes. We could tweak it to, you know, opportunities for landmarking your home, but that is just a one-page
Yeah.
flyer
Yeah,
with
something
QR
already
codes
works.
that's
Good though.
ready to go.
That's a really good.
Yeah, we already have it.
That's great.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you, and that maybe is just the start. You have that as your piece of information that's the talking point. And so, to me, what it feels like is, again, because we don't have a lot of resources. So if that's a resource that you're linked to, and then there are people, the other part is the people, right? So if you are passionate about doing this and you want to sit down in a booth and talk to people about it, you could scan this QR code and we can have a conversation about preservation. And it can go wherever the heck it goes. It can go to history, it can go to this. And if you want to circle back and talk about tax credits, you can, or you don't have to, or you can talk about whatever, because you're just people there having a conversation about preservation, and that alone is probably worth a ton. But so it really takes like commissioners who want to do this and are committed to saying, you know, I'll do this. And then honestly, just to kind of like someone is going to have to say, like Doug did for the Strawberry Festival, like, okay, I'll volunteer to kind of run this. Because I'll just tell you, it's not me either, right? This isn't where I'm uber passionate about. I'm happy to encourage, but I'm not doing that. So if there's a commissioner who's like, oh, I want to do this, so we don't need to make this decision now. But that's I think what if you really want something like that to happen, then somebody's got to say, okay, I'll organize a booth at whatever festival, blah blah, on this weekend, and then see if we can get enough people to participate. That'd be my kind of swing back.
But maybe we have some way that we're tracking how these are going and feedback, and like it would have been nice to have something, or the QR code was great, but maybe if it pointed, and maybe if then we can build on it. Again, commissioners change, right? And you're gonna have turnover in people, and it'd be nice if there was kind of some ongoing thread with this, because I think it's easy for a couple people to get excited. And then if they roll off or whatever, that dies, and then,
Well, I think what my suggestion there would be, again, if something does happen, like this, maybe the Strawberry Festival was the first time we did it last year, you guys did it. So then it becomes an agenda item, on an HBC before the event, and there can be a discussion about it, and whatever commissioners, kind of running the charge can kind of talk about it, and there could be a little opportunity to talk through it and strategize, and then maybe talk about it afterwards, right? It's an agenda item after the sessions, and that at least records it in the minutes, right? It's a formal way to acknowledge that it happened. But you're absolutely right. Like if there's a couple commissioners here that want to do something, and then the commission changes, and everybody on the commission's like, I'm not doing that. things.
Or I don't know what they did,
Yeah.
and I don't even know why, what would we do, and it doesn't become a thread.
I will say one thing that talking about presentations to other groups, I am going to be going to the Sustainability Advisory Board for the March meeting. It was originally
Which advisory board?
sustainability. Originally to talk about kind of land use zoning planning stuff, but I can definitely include a couple of slides about historic preservation.
That'd be great.
It's kind of sustainable.
Yeah, landfills are filled with construction debris.
Exactly.
And those are folks where historic preservation is not on the radar. in this
100%.
direction.
Oh, there is one of the board members lives in the historic east side. That I know for certain. But yeah, it's a diverse group. It has young folks on it, so that could be a good group to get interested.
Great. That was great. Just in the interest of getting to everything.
Yeah. Because we got 1 hour.
Right. Yeah. So
We have a little bit of overflow room,
Yeah.
so overload.
we don't want to keep it.
So the dedication.
So Tower of Compassion dedication. So do we have this? We kind of touched a little bit on it. It sounds like some cat herding that has to happen.
Yeah, I need to get in touch with. I need to coordinate with the CMO's office first and foremost on that to get for the primary cat herding, and then coordinate with Damien. But I do think it would be definitely worthwhile to include the museum and the historical society as part of that, just from a meeting of the minds and or having a collaborative event type situation because of the different elements of the storytelling versus the preservation, but how the Venn diagram of the two overlap. So. So yeah, that's my big thing with that is getting with the CMO's office.
Right.
City manager's office for those who don't speak an acronym.
Do you know, is there a date for this?
We don't have a date for it yet. I would think it would be sometime in the spring, just from this winter has not been a very representative one. TBD. So we just have to do the CMO cat herd first and foremost. And they'll handle getting the mayor and everything.
Let's just keep that on our radar, and then go for it.
The semi-sesquicentennial.
Thank you.
Wait. This is the term we're going to hear a lot.
It's like my favorite
So you
word
know,
right now.
the semi-sesquicentennial is the 250th anniversary, which is for the nation.
Yeah.
It's this sesquicentennial
Yes.
for Colorado. So they're two different terms.
Yeah.
The
That's
semi
right.
is only for the federal.
That's
The
right.
state, you take the semi off.
The
That's correct.
Now
150,
we're all know.
250 has just been kind of mushing them all
It's
together.
they're all kind of
Yeah.
English.
Right.
So
But if you can say that 5 times fast,
Semi-sesquicentennial.
You're good.
Semi-sesquicentennial. Make it about
Well, I've also
30.
heard, I've also heard 250 is referred to as like bicentennial. My university when I was there and I had a 250th anniversary and that was
That's
yeah.
even worse. That's
It was,
way worse.
it was a mouthful.
I dare you to spell that.
I fixed the slide. How's that?
Words not nearly as much fun.
So are there already events?
Right, that was going to be my question. Is the state's obviously got to be doing something, right? So
You would think.
Yeah, well, I know we've got a few exhibits at District Colorado. We're gonna have Colorado Day, August 1st, for everybody who doesn't know our state's birthday, which I'm forced to celebrate every year. People are having things around the state, but it's all going through the 150, 250 commission, and I'm not really keyed into that.
And I do know that there is some
August
there's participation in some things going on with the city, the city of Longmont. Only because I have heard 150, 250 brought up several times at council meetings, but I'm a little vague on exactly what the city's planning to do.
Okay.
But I know it all ties in with the fireworks and trying to figure out who's doing those.
And redoing the flag?
Oh yeah, what is that?
Isn't that part of the same?
Oh, that's right.
Which,
They're talking about redoing Longmont's flag.
Which
Oh,
I don't
flag,
know,
right.
I don't know
Yes.
what it looks like.
It was done 50 years ago, and it's, you know, it's 70s.
Okay.
It's fine.
Yeah, I don't,
Okay.
It's fine. That's my thing. So I will continue to, you know, Melanie and I will see if we can figure out what the city's doing, what the city plans are at this point, moving forward for that. So, but I know it's going to be tied into the July 4th events.
Yeah, I actually was just looking that up,
Okay.
and I've got all the information on, other than the fact that they said that we have the contact person, and they're gonna announce the location
Okay.
in the spring, they said.
Okay.
And it's,
TBD.
So we'll say
there's
TBD.
gonna
Stay
be
tuned.
all kinds of programs and stuff. 4th of July concert, picnic contests, performances. They haven't decided where it's gonna be. It's
Okay.
not gonna be Roosevelt Park anymore.
Not sure when, not sure where,
We're doing something. Yeah.
Right.
Well, something's happening.
Rogelio Maes,
Yeah, Virgilio. Yeah.
he's the spokesperson.
Yeah. No, I work closely with him
Yeah.
on many things.
And it just seems like it's going to be on a weekend this year, so it's
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
3rd and 4th, and Friday and Saturday. So, good time to, get involved. I know at the picnic contest they used to have, you could just set up your own little stand in Roosevelt Park, or wherever they're going to put it. All you need is a table and
Okay. TBD. We'll figure it out.
handouts. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So mid-century modern. Who in here would?
Gosh, I wonder who brought that
No idea.
So my question is, and again, can of worms and can be totally tabled because it's huge. But we talk about east side, west side, but like I live Baker, 17, there's some really nice neighborhoods of nice 50s ranch style homes all around that time. There's obviously the more north end of Maine, which is obviously and not preserved at all. And probably no one even knows it should be. And I just wondered if we've ever, again, it's looking at surveys and I don't know how much of a can of worms that is, but it is actually older than a lot of us tend to think. So,
And when you're talking about like the north end of Maine, you mean like where those old like motels and stuff are?
yeah,
Like,
yeah, and even
yeah.
down like I believe it came up in a meeting, the Buddhist temple south of town.
Mhm.
It's of that.
That's much older, actually.
Is that more like 30s, 40s
That's
kind of?
1850s. That's Burlington School was converted into the Buddhist temple.
Oh, okay.
But isn't there like a more modern component to that temple?
Oh,
I thought?
probably. I've never been there.
Yeah.
Buddhist temple was added to
Yeah, just
Yeah, it was-
the
Yeah.
Yeah, like last year.
Right.
the same
Well, that's
time.
why I thought it would come up. So yeah.
Yeah.
The same time that I spoke to the state conference, the
Right.
state conference call
Yeah.
on for our Tower of Compassion, we also added the Buddhist temple.
Yeah.
Okay, that was how it came up, I think,
Yeah.
is because so, and then I actually, on a little sidebar here, was asking the Winchell's Donut downtown. I don't think that's an old building, it's obviously in the historic,
The donut?
the Winchell's Donut, but considering all the drama around reopening it and everything else, and it's a standalone building, I don't know how old it is, but it feels like
That should be in the National Register
I
survey.
think
whether
that,
it's
that's what we were
contributed.
saying,
Yeah,
so we could
I'm
look
gonna
it up.
look it up.
And I could have looked it up online before it came, but anyway, I just wondered how much this had been on the radar, so.
But, we're passive and we wait for people to come to us with the idea. If we tweak this letter, you could send it out to places. The question is where, because there's a lot. I mean, the original square mile is big enough, but when you think of the number of homes, I guess, did Longmont explode in the 50s? When did IBM come?
Oh, I have a fun.
But the growth in the 50s, the number of 50s homes and 60s homes, we would be sending out gazillions of letters.
One
And
moment,
then
please.
we're asking for.
Right,
But yeah,
no, I
But I mean,
realize.
we could, with the tweaked letter, we could send that out. That would be the outreach, I suppose.
Right. But a lot of those neighborhoods, because they're kind of working class, they're nicely preserved. I mean, there's a lot of neighborhoods with some really nice
Yeah.
50s
Mhm.
houses that if people learn more about what a 50s house is and what it could be and,
Bear with me one minute, please. I'm
Well,
looking for a slide deck that I
learn
think
how
you
to
guys
not
will
pop them
love.
up.
But were those neighborhoods not identified in our preservation plan, our survey plan that we just finished?
I didn't
on?
see it.
I think some of it is,
Some
but
of
some
it,
of the, I think, at least from what I recall, the folks doing the survey plan, the consultant, identified a handful of bigger areas, right? So if it's a couple, if it's a block or half a block or a couple, then
Okay,
it doesn't
right.
really, it didn't rise to enough critical mass to become a neighborhood that would get surveyed.
Okay.
Right, so it almost,
Okay.
They'd have to be.
yeah, right, it would almost be like you'd do the whole survey plan that we have, and then you'd say, well, where else could we just wander around the town
Yeah.
outside of this boundary and go find
Okay.
cool things,
Have you,
Yeah.
a little bit. I think that's what happened.
Here's just
Yeah.
in case folks haven't
Here
seen
you
this.
go.
This
Yeah.
is a really great slide series going from 1871 to present. So let's just do a quick dun,
20s,
dun,
40s.
dun.
50s, see?
Hey,
Oh.
that's what I do.
There
Yeah.
Now we're
So-
talking.
That's also, that's still about 50 years old.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'm
a
saying.
huge amount
This
to
is
reach
way
out to.
more recent than
Way
we all
too
tend to
much.
think. No, I realize, but I also
So
think
where do you
there's some really
start?
nice, yeah. But I think there's some nice neighborhoods
Oh,
with some
yeah.
nice
So if
preserved
you back it
and
up, yeah. I see what you're saying.
it may be more
Right.
education rather than designating them as historic areas.
And then
Right.
you go back to the 50s,
Yeah.
there's a.
But
But yeah,
Yeah,
this is
so
like, you can tell this is,
yeah.
Um,
But it is kind of spread out all.
it's basically, it's 100% automobile.
But if you
dominance.
even went back to the
Yes.
50s,
Mhm.
go back.
Now, those
There.
are the neighborhoods that we
Yeah.
surveyed already, right? That we had.
But I
we
don't
looked
think
at.
you did see where it says Maine and
Yeah,
goes
we
north
didn't
that,
go
Right,
that
that,
whole
that
layout.
northern section
That's
there
not in
that
there, I
came up
don't
in the
believe.
60s and 70s, yes.
And
we
again,
didn't
that's
really do.
70 years old, so
Yeah.
it's kind of interesting doing mid-century stuff because when you talk to people, they're like, that really is that old. So,
Yeah.
Right.
People don't want to realize how old they are.
Right,
but
right,
I mean,
absolutely.
really, because
Absolutely. You get baby boomers and they don't want to hear those numbers at all. So,
All that up there in the north, we didn't really even consider
and it's
that.
all 60s.
Although the hilltop stuff, is that the hilltop stuff over there?
Yes.
But the stuff just to the left of that, we hadn't even.
And
considered.
again, I don't know
Longmont
on that
Estates
north
was
thing how
included.
much of that's even been
It
preserved.
was-
I
it
think
was
a bunch of
included in the
it's
plan.
probably all been demoed and has different
Yeah.
stuff on it. But Lamplighter Motel, that's gotta be,
I love that.
Yeah?
place. Yeah.
that's gotta be 60s or 70s, right?
It's probably older than that.
Is
Yeah,
it
I
older than
think
that?
so.
At
And
least the
there's
base of it.
Another one up in Fort Collins, like it was a regional.
Oh, it was a chain?
Yeah.
Oh, so that's
Yeah.
actually got a history, so.
That's
Yeah,
pretty
it
cool.
does. It's definitely like eligible.
That
Yeah.
would be fun
Yeah.
to preserve.
And I, just from my point of view, these can do a lot for a town too, whether you make them into affordable housing or whether you just make them into nice boutique hotels with the idea of like your Sundance Film Festival coming and that sort of thing.
Mhm.
I think there's some ways to sell this as important. Again, it's educating people as to why redoing is better than demoing and building something new.
So
Mhm.
That's not crazy.
I felt like a few years ago, well, not I felt like, I know a few years ago, I think we had a similar conversation because
important,
Gita
too.
and I walked South Main with Karen Bryant when she was the planner. Because we were talking about all those mid-century businesses, like all the car
Over by
dealerships.
South
Oh,
Main.
yeah.
Yeah, and so we just kind of walked it to talk about like what we should be interested in as a city, and I don't know what happened in that conversation or that information.
Are there places in the country where the car dealerships are historic buildings?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
On Route 66, absolutely.
Yeah, Route
Absolutely,
66.
yeah.
That's
That could
our
be a huge
central.
deal.
Yeah.
There is there's a Main Street corridor plan,
Yes.
which
Yeah.
extends through really the entire spine.
Believe so.
I don't
I
know,
would have to
it's
find
been
it.
forever since I looked at that, if there's any mention of preservation at all in that plan.
That I don't know.
I remember being salty with that plan because I didn't think there was.
Yeah.
Like, I think I left some pretty mean comments.
That whole Kensington neighborhood's eligible too.
And so, I think, well, there's a couple different things. So if you're a commercial property owner, then there's still tax credit availability, but the structure is different, right?
Yeah.
For income producing properties,
Yes.
but it's still available. So I think that if you wanted to get to a point where you're, even just sending out a letter that was similar to the thing we already have, you have to make sure that the information was kind of
Right.
spun the right, directed to the right place, because the process is different.
So maybe this just popped into my squirrel brain. Maybe one of the things we do for Historic Preservation Month is I work with our comms team and to use that letter to historic property owners and craft it into a press release of some sort.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
To give, in case someone wants to write an article for the
What about a
paper.
presence on Nextdoor? Have we ever talked about doing things on Nextdoor?
I would prefer not to set it on Nextdoor personally, because I don't need to know who all is registered.
No, but I do think Nextdoor, because the police use it, the
Yeah.
city uses it, they use it for public
I know
information.
the city PIO uses it, so so we do have we do have a comms team, we do have a public information officer, so I mean I always talk. I'm always in communication with the communications team, so.
But I was thinking that's another place that's not the newspaper, that's not and a lot of people are on it.
They are, I know, I don't want to say selective, but it's, social media can be challenging because you want to get the information out, but you don't want it to turn into a snake pit.
But it can be informational.
Yeah.
So something like your letter, where it's just informational, and this is just to get out to people who are interested in.
I can work with our comms team to see if they have some ideas.
I was just thinking that'd be less expensive than mailing everybody.
Yeah,
Yes.
mailing is, we don't have the budget to do more than just our landmark properties right now, so, because that's a spendy undertaking at
Yeah.
75 cents or whatever it is with printing costs and staff time. So I'll go back to our regular presentation, but I thought this was something.
That is
No, I
very-
love that.
That is great.
I'm not sure who created that, but I use it a lot.
They need to do different colors for
Yeah.
each of the decades so you can
Oh,
see
that's a
it.
great
Yeah.
idea.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. Didn't mean to make any
So I
noise.
don't know that we have necessarily a conclusion out of this, but I think it's good discussion.
So
Just-
a thought is your idea of, if you had a QR code, somebody was curious, that pretty informational,
Yeah.
Just the map.
easy.
Yeah.
It would take more than 3 seconds to see
Yeah.
it.
Just visual, you just gotta
Attention.
look at it.
It's like short now.
Mhm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
More work for it,
And then we have expansion of the east side district here. I think that's.
Who brought that
Yeah. Project here.
Well, again, this one developer, he tore down 830 Emery Street, which was an 1880s perfectly fine house, and he put in something that belongs on Disney's Main Street USA, and he was proposing to do the same thing on Kimbark, and he could easily keep picking off places the way things are. So we need more carrots for preservation, if we can, and more outreach and education and awareness. And a National Historic District is all carrots, there's no sticks, there's no restrictions, so it should be relatively easy, quote unquote, to do if we had the data to support it. Now, and again, that book that I've given you all, you can see how small the historic district is, you can see with that tour how big the area is that might be eligible. And since the original historic district was made, we've done a lot more research, we have a lot more information on homes that might contribute to a National Historic District. So my question is, how much more work do we have to do to enlarge it? But that would raise people's awareness, that would make developers think twice about just buying something and then finding out halfway through the process, oh, there's some resistance from the landmark designation, historic preservation commission. If they know it's in a National Historic District, it'll make them stop and think about, do I want to redevelop this property before they even get mentally invested in the process. So it might help us with preservation. But I don't know how many houses do you have to have concentrated in a block to maybe make it eligible? Do we have anywhere near that much now with the research we've done in the east side?
We have the data. I would say it's reasonable to assume that there's probably many blocks that can be extended to. In terms of what's involved in doing an expansion, I honestly don't know because I've actually never done a National Register District nomination package before. I know if we were looking at a local district, politically, they're rails. No one's touching those. No one's touching those these days.
That's all sticks and no carrots. No one wants those.
Yeah, those are a big lift. But as far as expansion of the East Side District, I can't speak to that. Do you have any thoughts on that, Holly?
So I think on one level it's easier than a new National Register District. We could do it as an amendment. However, you still have to have landowner permission. So every single individual property would have
every single one, 100%.
Has to say whether they're, they don't have to be included, but you have to have their permission, yay or nay. And then you have to have 51% of whatever that boundary is that you're looking at, has to say, yes, I want to be part of this.
51%.
51% of this National Register District. How many, like what the density is kind of, I think it's probably going to be determined a bit by that. Like if you have an entire blocks of people where they're like, we have no interest,
right.
Or entire blocks where just a couple of houses, it's probably not going to be able to be expanded.
Because we have an East Side neighborhood newsletter, and I could put out the information in that says we are considering this. There are benefits to, I looked all over online trying to find what they are. There are some benefits to being a historic district, even if you're not a designated home. I could put some of that in there and raise awareness. But I guess then we'd have to figure out where the boundaries are, or what proposed boundaries would be. There's a lot involved.
So there's going to be a period of significance on this National Register District. So the East Side neighborhood is important from this year to this year. So you would want to make sure that your boundaries had buildings that were still related to that period of significance. And then it has to make sense that they're all part of kind of the same thing, right? And that period of significance will help that, but is it part of the same community or is it part of like a totally different thing? So I think those would be the first questions. It's just maybe sitting down and saying, okay, so here's where we are now. I think, this whole area was originally built in the same period because these were all the, railroad workers' homes. Up here was built at the same period, but this was actually all folks who were working at the sugar factory, so it's not related. Right, so that's where some of your boundaries would come in and help you kind of keep it confined.
Where do we find a period of significance that was applied for?
I can,
on the National Register.
Yeah,
National
I can
Register.
send, if folks haven't seen it, I can send the National Register nominations for West Side, East Side, and downtown. I can include that. I'll include that in the March meeting package.
Sure.
Okay, that would be great, thank you.
Great.
So,
question, from your 51% that agree, your ones that don't agree, are they just not designated, or are they designated against their will, kind of like, is it? No.
They would be non-contributing. The National Park Service will not designate them against their will.
Okay, so you've got 51% saying, yes, I'd love for my house to be included. Those houses will then be.
So if you have 51% within the boundary, you're like, okay, then yes, then the new boundary for this National Register District will be here. But even then, whether it's contributing to the district or it's not contributing, is still owner decisions.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be identified as potentially contributing, but they wouldn't be required to.
And again, they're within the boundary.
Right.
There's no,
Yeah.
there's no requirement to do anything.
No.
When the boundary gets redrawn,
Yep.
set, you just do whatever the heck you want.
Yeah.
And technically, even if that happened, just so we're all super clear, like our demolition ordinance isn't gonna have anything, any power outside of the original town boundary as well, even if it's in a district. It's just another, it is something that makes.
It's a label, it doesn't provide any
Right,
protections.
It's acknowledge versus protect.
So it gives them landowners freedom, and I don't foresee a lot of resistance to that.
Yeah,
But you never know. People are.
I think downtown was harder than people thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Because I mean, and I hear this all the time. I would never want a national register. I don't want to be on the register that it makes you can't do anything with your property.
Yes.
Well, that's education
at all.
That's the thing.
Right, but that's what I'm
HOA
saying.
is gonna give you way more.
Oh,
than
yeah.
the register. That's one thing I don't understand when people say, you live in a, you can't do that. That's different. No, not really.
Right,
Yeah.
you can't put a certain plant in your front yard.
Yeah,
Right,
you can only
right.
have 2 trees or something, I don't know.
Yeah, but so I just think, but people again don't understand it, so you're going to get the initial "I don't want this."
Right.
Educate.
So education.
So
key.
it feels to me like again, if it's going to be a lot easier if it is really supported, right? So if it's a ground swell movement, of people in that particular area saying, "Hey, that would be really cool." If you get enough people in that space, it almost seems like outreach directly to the people you're thinking about would be in that boundary. Would be, are you interested? Here's why it would be good, right? And if you can get some support around it, then maybe, maybe I think in the end you're going to need a consultant. I mean, in the end you need to hire a consultant that can write the nomination,
Well, that's it.
draw a map.
There's so much stuff we'd have to
Yeah,
do.
yeah.
And
Compile
I'm
the
not sure what
surveys.
that all is, but yeah. So,
I don't even know what the budget. I have no concept of what the budget for something like that would be.
We certainly, Kimberly would know, right?
Okay.
I mean, I can ask her.
Didn't Carl do the downtown with
He
the?
probably did, yeah.
And he was like half the price of everyone else.
Yeah, which is, he's done. Right?
Oh no, he's like retired and in Macedonia or something.
Yeah. Herding goats. And
He retired, but he
Not
went
seen
off the
that.
grid.
Yeah,
Sounds terrible.
yeah. So but she would at least be familiar with the process because that was 2017 or something like that.
Yeah, it was.
Oh,
It
it's
was
Yeah.
2017.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I thought it was old.
No, the downtown
Okay.
district is super.
Oh, yeah, no, that was really new. I was
Yeah.
thinking the east side.
Oh yeah, no.
Okay.
That's
the process is the
Okay,
same.
that's okay.
In
Yeah.
terms of running through the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
process,
Yes,
that would
yeah.
have been relatively recent.
That was,
right?
that was like 2017. Yeah. Yeah, and it was harder than people thought it was going to be. There's a lot of, I feel like, if I remember that correctly, there's a lot of buildings that should be listed on that were like, we're out. We're not
Yeah.
being part of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Can you revisit that at different times and like re-educate the new owners so that, because I'm guessing some of it's turned over, right? And the new owner might be all in.
Yeah.
If it's within the boundary.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, and they can still be, they could be individually listed, the boundaries can be read and contributing, non-contributing, or assessed. Yeah, that can always happen.
Again, it's an education, but I wonder how many people know whether they're listed or or not, because you think about how many, like downtown, how many of those buildings have been sold and redone. I was thinking of the Times Collaborative, because I know she's a new owner. It probably is listed. I don't know if it's one of the ones listed or not.
Yeah.
But if that original person was like, no way,
Yeah. Yeah.
I know the new owner, she'd be all in, if she even knew that was even an option, you know? I don't know.
Right.
That all seems like that all takes a lot of time and a lot of education and a lot of, but it also seems important to what we do.
It does, and we did we did encounter one hiccup with the National Register process, and I know like part of it is acknowledge versus protect.
Yeah.
But when like Teo Cali went to do their facade renovation of that building because of the way the period of significance was, it had like an afterthought 50s storefront that was added that still was in its period of significance, and while it's not a local landmark, it was considered a contributing structure. So when they went to do the complete overhaul of the building and redo the facade, they weren't able to get an SBA loan because of the 106 process.
Mm-hmm.
So they could not get an SBA backed loan because they were altering a contributing structure. So and that was
that process worked.
Yeah. So they didn't get
I
an
hate
S-
that building. It's awful what they did to it. So
yeah. I mean it's
yeah.
it's one of those I'm conflicted on because I like the after effect. I like the end result, but it's the fact that it replaced what was there.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the challenge. So,
I actually like it.
yeah.
Really.
Yeah, the building before was really boring. And it wasn't like it knocked down some thing. You know, it's like,
It was for me. It was just the storefront change had been. It didn't really quite. It was even though it was considered in the period of significance. It was very kind of.
Yeah.
It felt very afterthought.
I will say I have building amnesia with that building. Like I've always thought buildings get knocked down and then something gets built. And you're like, what was there?
Yeah.
And I do have building amnesia with that, but I know well that's new and I don't like it. That's not what was there.
It
looks
looks
bad.
new.
right,
Yeah.
but okay, so this goes back to my point that I was making earlier about would it have passed then?
Right,
Like,
yeah.
50 years from now, somebody's going to be going, that building has to be kept exactly the way it is because this cool thing was done. And, you know, I mean, I think there's a high chance of that kind of thing because it was a revitalization effort, right? And it's
Yeah.
changed downtown, and these things are going to end up being around for more than 50 years.
Yeah.
And somebody's going to slap that thing with a historic designation.
Oh, God.
You know what? Good. I hope they look at these minutes when they do. Did you have a question? Okay. That's okay. You look like you were going to say something.
Why don't, outside of this meeting, why don't you talk to my staff about what a National Register amendment would look like for this? And that might
Okay.
help give you a better idea.
So can you give me the email for the staff? That'd be
Yeah.
great. I'd be happy to do that.
Yeah. Okay.
Rick, I can help. I'll help you with
That's great.
whatever.
I don't,
Because
I
I would
don't
be
know what I'm
part of
doing
that. I
yet.
would
I'm
be
just
part
gonna-
of that, and I would like
I
that.
know you would,
So,
yeah.
So
So
remember,
if you-
two people, only two commissioners at a time can meet without doing a meeting notification. So
Well, let's talk serially.
yeah, so yeah, and more than two at a time can talk.
But this wouldn't be, this
You would-
wouldn't necessarily be a commission.
That's true. That's true.
This is not, yeah.
That's true. Okay.
And also, I'm not meeting with you, my staff is.
You're having your people. You're having your people.
My people, right.
If you want to get lunch though.
All right, well, great, that's
All right.
progress. And then the other, we have any other, I mean, we basically got a little less than half an hour, which is pretty good. And so is there anything else anybody wants to talk about as far as, that feels like a lot, that we've got a lot of time we've covered, but is there anything else anybody's got on
So this
mind?
would be a weird procedural question based on the whole two or more together and blah, blah, blah. What if we had, because we really only have an hour a month, or 2 hours, but then we've got people coming in and everything else. If we wanted to do these events as they come up, and we wanted to do that, if you had a subcommittee, because I think there's a couple of us that would be interested in doing these things. it would probably be very helpful to you if we kind of took the point on them and then just looked to support for, can we get printed materials, and is this okay to say, and that sort of thing. How does that even work?
It's a good question. We'll have to, I'll check with Jeremy on that.
Because you would almost have to meet or
To be able to-
have an email thread or something. And I'm guessing just from Steve's expressions, he's not interested in being in on those discussions.
Right, I'm not.
I mean, maybe
This is
loop you
great.
in because you're
Yes.
vaguely interested or
Right.
whatever, but,
Sure.
you know,
But-
so, you know, how do we do that?
I suspect it would just be a matter if there would be more than 2 people at a time, it would be a matter of noticing the meeting at least 24 hours ahead of time, that you would be talking about it.
Okay.
Why don't you have Jeremy tell us?
But we can,
Yeah.
again, that's something we can
And
ask
can we
Jeremy.
report we can report at the
That's just a question.
regular commissioner meeting.
Oh,
Right.
Jeremy needs to tell us what, if you had 3 people on a call
Subcommittee,
to
yeah.
discuss something that might be commission business or might not be, you know, what elements of the open meetings and open records acts are you triggering?
Right. What needs to be
You can
recorded,
tell.
what needs to be open.
Yeah.
How do we
I
deal
mean,
with
making
that?
it available.
Yeah.
So you could make it a Zoom call and then have the Zoom thing available
Recorded,
so that I can't
available.
imagine anybody's gonna ever join. You know, you could put it out there and say, here's the Zoom link if anybody really wants to join us and have a
Right.
long discussion about going to fairs or going to bars or whatever. I can't imagine.
Well, don't say go to bars, because then people might be like,
Don't do that, but yeah, I'm just wondering procedurally.
You start out with 2 people.
Mhm.
That's not an
Only
issue.
have 2 people talk.
Have 2 people, just have 2 people start the discussion. Because he doesn't care about that.
Right, it'd be worth knowing though, if you wanted to have
Yeah.
3 people or 4 or whatever, just
Then
it's
we
big
have to
enough
get-
and you wanna
I would need to get
divide and conquer.
feedback from
if
him
there's-
to be comfortable with it.
For
Yeah, I
sure,
agree.
for sure.
I agree.
Okay,
Maybe it's just me.
okay, yeah, so recap, what are we talking about today?
I have a list of action items if you want me to. Okay, this is what I gathered from my notes. Tower of Compassion, we will coordinate with the CMO's office for our ceremony upcoming. We're gonna have Jeremy Tyrell come to the April meeting to speak on the demolition ordinance and possibly an earlier meeting, maybe the March meeting or the April meeting to speak about subcommittees.
Maybe the April meeting.
April.
Since it's not gonna be available for March.
I've got Doug as our lead for the Strawberry Festival efforts. We will work with the communications team to tweak the landmark letter for additional outreach, potentially a public
Like a press release. or
press
something.
release. Thank
Yeah,
you
I'll-
for the general
I'll-
public.
I'll coordinate with our comms team on how we can incorporate something like that for the historic preservation month.
Jennifer will provide the National Register designation information at the March meeting.
Yep, I'll include that in the packet.
And you will be presenting to the Sustainability Board upcoming, so you will also mention historic preservation at that.
And we will have a public hearing at the March meeting.
That's what I have. for
Yeah.
action items.
And the March meeting packet will be going out late next week.
So, I don't need to know what's going on in the March meeting yet. One thing I thought maybe we should discuss or at least think about is this idea of mitigation. So, we've had a couple of instances in the last year where people have come before us and said, we want to annex or we want to do this thing. What do you guys want to see? And then we're like, we're put on the spot of having to come up with like a preservation plan for a property. And I think we've been doing a fair job, but you know, what does it mean for this commission to have mitigation measures, and what kind of things are reasonable and like do we need to think about? And really, like, what does mitigation mean? So I don't know. I know we're at the end, but especially if this is coming up in March, and I don't know if this is going to be another one of those asks in March.
No, it's a bog standard landmark alteration.
Fabulous. Okay. Good.
Phew. That's unique.
I would like to recommend that we think about these things then, and I'm not even saying that we need to have like, okay, well they came before us, where's our list, and let's choose number 5 this year, but just ideas in our back pocket of what we as a commission think are reasonable mitigation or preservation plans that we can start conversations on, instead of just throwing crap at a wall in the middle of the meeting and seeing what sticks. Okay.
And I would think most properties, it sort of always depends, because what's
Yeah.
important for a farm is different from what's important down on Main Street.
Right.
But there may be some commonalities, or a suggested document that says, well, these are some things that you might want to consider as you're
Yeah.
thinking about doing mitigation. And then you'd have to say might want to consider, because I want the lawyers to be okay with public.
Right.
Well, it feels like development's a huge thing, so these farms are actually a big deal, because that is where
Yeah.
people are expanding and building
Yeah.
big developments and looking at taking out a historic farm that's been there, even though
Right.
maybe it's been neglected or abandoned for how many years, seems to be kind of currently on the radar a lot, so.
Mm-hmm.
And you can sort of see the themes that are starting to develop.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
we come in with, everything gets wiped and we have a plaque on,
Right.
Yeah.
the park.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And
you know.
we can't do it because of
Yeah.
either,
Right. But
the highway or the.
somewhere between the plaque in the park and keeping the thing preserved as,
Right.
As it is.
farm
Yeah.
use.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
those
Yeah.
are,
Yeah.
that's not realistic either. So what
Right.
are
Yeah.
the things that start to make sense to
Yeah.
say, hey, we could do?
Yeah.
Are there other communities that have gone through this that have examples of developments where they've done things? Is there a way to kind of reach out to agrarian-esque communities, different places, and find out how they've dealt with development into these areas to kind of see examples? Because for me, it's sort of imagining. I mean, you're sort of making things up as you go.
So we looked at was it Erie and Louisville maybe, preservation plans? A couple of these.
Oh, yeah.
Right, and so I know
Somebody's
we've had it in the package,
sort of done
do
a
they
whole
address
report.
that sort of thing?
That's an excellent question. I haven't looked at those in a few years, and I honestly don't know what they say.
Or if they just have, if you've got a staff liaison
Yeah.
or an HBC person that would just say, hey, here's, kind of, we've seen a couple of these, because those would be the same communities, right?
Well, and I
Yeah.
think about too, just even like Kansas and there's got to be a lot of these like big states with cute historic areas, but then they are growing into, maybe very slower, but growing into this. And I think that Longmont, preserving that in Longmont is fairly important to a lot of people within Longmont
Yeah.
too.
I've seen that in Kansas. I mean, I don't remember where, but I've seen that in Kansas where, like, they have like a farmstead and stuff. They put houses on, but as you drive through, you can see certain houses or structures have been preserved. The ones I've been to, they're like now like museum things, and but it's in the middle of where a housing.
And it's probably
So,
a
yeah,
weird
something like
comparison
that.
because their land is not worth what our land. I mean, that's the thing too. You talk about like that development across from Walmart where they're trying to put in dense housing in order to keep housing prices low. It's a very different. I mean, I do think in a lot of ways Erie, those communities would be more equal, but I don't know how many of those have done this.
Yeah.
They're probably running into it the same way we are, right? Is they're
I
running.
think so.
And again, the example, it's far, far from perfect, but the example of Prospect
Yeah.
Yes.
is
Yeah.
that example. That was an apple orchard with a couple of old houses on it.
Yeah.
That the old houses are all still there. Some of them they're just baked into the neighborhood, and the houses are weird enough in there that
Yeah.
you don't really get it right away, and then you just, oh wow, okay, yeah, this was actually an old house. But that's one way to do it, right? And that's a way that's been done successfully.
But I guess if there was like a group of things like that to pull from as ideas for the developers and for us.
And and again, and like what we're comfortable with as a commission, because we have more flexibility as a local community and what we consider preservation than, if you're talking to like the National Register or the State Register, who have very Yeah, right, like, going back to Prospect, which I think is a fabulous one, we were very happy to have things moved around, right?
Right.
And like, that's great, that is a no-go for state and national.
That's, it's gotta be right there, it's gotta be,
Right.
yeah. It's
So-
the difference between the national parks and the national forest.
Right.
Right, it's the recreating everything with the original tools versus, you can kind of do what you need to, and it's a weird parallel, I know.
Yeah, well, for historic preservation, it doesn't work, but yes. No, they're still beholden to federal law. But yeah, so just, you know, what sort of things, but also like keeping in mind, you know, something that we talk about when things come to our office is, you know, what's reasonable for the scope of the work, right? So, a building on Main Street that is doing a rehab might have a different mitigation strategy than one of these agricultural places, and we might have different ideas about what's appropriate when they come before us. But also being reasonable in that we're asking for something that is actually accomplishable by the developer, because, right? You know, what can they reasonably do for preservation? And then there's other things that we don't do a lot in Colorado, like mitigation banking, essentially, where maybe they tear down this building, but they give a donation to the historical museum or society or something. Not advocating for that, just putting out. Yeah, it's not a popular idea, but
Sounds like less than a plaque.
We'll pay
right.
it off.
Well, yeah.
It is, right? Yeah.
There might be some commissions that are like, no, that's a great idea. Our
Well, you'd rather take the money.
our museum needs
Yeah.
you know, this
Yeah.
thing, and there's
Right.
more of a public.
Rather have the money than.
Right. So I just yeah, if we can have some ideas, I think, because I feel like we've been blindsided twice this year with these, and it feels like the springboard, like we were talking about earlier. Okay.
But maybe, like I said, looking at some other towns in town.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
I
curious.
think so
I'm
too.
curious that maybe some people that don't have
So-
brains on the wheel.
I think maybe we could, so there's the CLG listserv, and so we could talk to Lindsay Flewelling, our CLG coordinator, and then put it out to the other CLGs. If you guys are on that, just be like, yo, you know, what are you guys doing? There's also, I think it's the NAPC magazine, the National Association of Preservation Communities. I don't read it regularly. I know one of the editors. I'll see if I can, like, if there's a link to like digital copies. But these would be the sorts of things that they would talk about, like really successful programs in other communities. So, you know, we can kind of mine that for some information. Okay. That's all.
Good discussion. It would be good to move on. My personal opinion is we've been reasonably successful with this land property
Yeah.
and with this most recent one
Yes.
in getting, you know, the important piece kind of out of it, and more than maybe we even thought we could get,
Yeah.
and definitely more than they
Yeah.
wanted.
Yeah.
I'm sympathetic.
Yeah.
I live on the other side of that world often too, so I truly do understand. Doug?
On next steps, Melanie, we also talked about contacting people in the city about what are the other parades or what's the city calendar look like. And then when we see that, we can decide what kind of steps we want to take as far as having a booth or
It certainly seems like that. 150, 250, I can't say the word.
Somebody says listen to
Yeah,
you.
whatever that
Don't show Paul.
schedule something for that, that's not.
You've
that's
been
just
practicing.
like a
Good skill.
practicing.
Yeah, that one would be a city event. Unity in the Community is through the Chamber of Commerce, and I believe the 4th in Kimbark is through the LDDA. But I believe the 150, 250 would be a city event.
What's the LDDA?
Downtown Development Authority.
Thank you.
Technically part of the city as well.
Yeah. Right. Public-private partnership situation.
Okay, anything else before we call it? All right, yeah, well, thank you for showing up, thank you staff for being here and helping out.
And attendance is very,
Let me just get for the record a motion to adjourn.
So,
All right, move.
Second.
All right. Moved by Commissioner Barnett, seconded by Commissioner Terrick. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned.
Thanks, everybody.